Your energy may feel like something private, something that belongs only to your body today. But the quiet truth is that human energy was shaped in a world that no longer exists. A world of long walking, uncertain food, cold nights, dark mornings, and bodies that had to spend effort carefully, not endlessly. Maybe what feels broken in you is not simply weakness. Maybe it is an old design meeting a new life. So where did this mismatch begin? And why does it still follow us so quietly? Something is wrong with your energy, and it started long ago. The strange thing about human energy is that it often feels personal, as if it belongs only to the life you are living now. You wake with it, lose it, search for it, blame yourself for not having enough of it. Some days it seems to rise for no clear reason. Other days it disappears before the day has really begun. In a modern room, under artificial light, with food nearby and a bed behind you, this can feel almost impossible to explain. The world is safer than it once was. The body is protected from cold in ways earlier humans could not rely on. Most people do not have to walk across open land to find food before sunset, yet the feeling remains. A quiet heaviness sits inside the body, and the mind begins to ask whether something has gone wrong. But energy was never only a feeling. Long before it became a word people used for motivation, productivity, or personal strength, energy was the basic currency of survival. Every movement had a cost. Every hour awake required fuel. Every cold night asked the body to defend its warmth. Every wound, infection, pregnancy, hunger period, and long walk placed demands on the same limited biological system. The human body did not come from a world where energy could be spent freely and replaced at any moment. It came from a much older arrangement, where effort had to be measured against uncertainty. This does not mean we can describe every detail of prehistoric life with confidence. Archaeology, anthropology, evolutionary biology, and the study of living humans can only give us careful pieces of the larger picture. But those pieces point in the same general direction. Human energy was shaped in environments where food, temperature, terrain, safety, and social support mattered deeply. The body learned, across generations, not simply to be strong, but to survive within limits. That older lesson still moves beneath the surface of modern life. When you feel tired today, the cause may be ordinary and close. Poor sleep, too much work, emotional strain, illness, age, stress, or many other factors that only a health professional could properly evaluate. But beneath those immediate causes is a deeper background. Your body is not an empty container that modern life fills or drains from scratch. It is an inherited system, built from countless small compromises. It carries organs that must be fed, muscles that must be maintained, a brain that consumes a large share of resources, and a nervous system that keeps scanning the world even when the room seems quiet. This body did not first appear in offices, cars, elevators, glowing screens, and predictable meals. Its basic patterns began much earlier, in landscapes where movement, hunger, darkness, weather, and other people were part of the same daily equation. This is why modern tiredness can feel confusing. The surface of life has changed faster than the deep habits of the body. You may sit still for hours and yet feel exhausted. You may eat more regularly than your ancestors could have expected and still feel unstable. You may avoid physical danger and still carry a body that responds to pressure as if pressure must be prepared for. You may sleep in comfort and still wake as if recovery has not fully reached you. None of this proves that the past was better. It was not a simple, pure, or easy world. Earlier human life involved real hardship, and it would be wrong to turn it into a romantic story. But it was the world in which many of the body's basic energy rules were shaped. The beginning of human energy is not found in a single moment, or in one lost lifestyle, or in a clean story about strength. It is found in a long relationship between bodies and environments. It is found in the need to move without wasting too much, to rest without becoming unsafe, to eat when food was available, to endure when it was not, to stay warm when warmth was not guaranteed, and to depend on others because no human body was ever meant to carry life completely alone. So when energy feels wrong today, the question may not begin with what you failed to do this morning. It may begin much farther back, with a body that learned to protect its resources before it ever learned to live in a world of constant demand. To understand why energy can feel so unreliable now, it helps to think of the body not as a battery with a simple charge, but as a living system that must constantly decide where effort should go. Even while you are resting, the body is not doing nothing. It is keeping blood moving, maintaining temperature, repairing tissues, managing immune defenses, digesting food, balancing fluids, sending signals through the nervous system, and keeping the brain awake enough to follow the world. These tasks are quiet, but they are not free. They belong to the same deeper budget that also allows a person to stand, walk, think, speak, worry, remember, and recover. In the long beginning of human life, this budget mattered every day. The body could not assume that fuel would always arrive on time. It could not assume that warmth would remain stable through the night. It could not assume that a safe place to rest would always be available. So, energy was never only about having strength in the muscles. It was about distribution. A human body had to keep enough power for movement, enough for attention, enough for healing, enough for digestion, enough for reproduction, enough for staying warm, and enough for the brain to make sense of a changing landscape. This older logic did not vanish when life became more comfortable. It still shapes the way the body responds to strain. A person may feel tired not only because one part of life is demanding, but because several quiet systems are asking for support at the same time. A heavy meal, a poor night of sleep, worry, cold, pain, infection, grief, long sitting, too much stimulation, or too little movement can all press on the same limited background. The body does not treat energy as something meant only for ambition. It treats energy as something that must be protected for survival. This is one reason modern tiredness can feel so strange. The mind may say, "I have not done enough to be this tired," but the body is measuring more than visible work. It may be carrying the cost of attention, emotional control, digestion, low movement, broken sleep, and constant signals from the environment. In an older human setting, effort often had a clearer physical shape. Walking, carrying, searching, watching, resting, warming, and eating were tied to the land and to the group. The cost of energy could be felt in the legs, the hands, the stomach, the skin. Today, much of the cost is less visible. A person may spend long hours almost motionless, yet the brain remains active, the eyes keep absorbing light, the nervous system keeps sorting messages, and the body keeps preparing for demands that may never turn into action. The ancient budget is still being spent, but often without the old rhythm that helped the body understand when effort had begun and when effort had ended. This does not mean every feeling of fatigue has an ancient cause. It does not replace ordinary explanations, medical care, sleep, food, or the many personal realities that shape a human life. But it gives a quieter frame for the question. The body you live in was not designed around endless output. It was shaped around trade-offs. If more energy went into heat, less could be used elsewhere. If the immune system was active, other functions could feel slower. If the brain was tense and watchful, the body might feel as if it had already been working for hours. If sleep was disturbed, the next day began with a debt that could not be erased by willpower alone. These are not failures of character. They are signs of an organism that still follows older rules. In the deep history of our species, survival depended on careful spending. A body that spent too freely could be left without enough for hunger, cold, danger, or repair. A body that saved too much could miss chances to move, gather, learn, or connect. Human energy grew from this balance. It was never a single flame burning at one steady brightness. It was more like a small fire tended through a long night, sometimes rising, sometimes shrinking, always answering to air, fuel, weather, and need. The deeper question is not why modern people sometimes feel tired. Tiredness has always belonged to living bodies. The deeper question is why tiredness can feel so out of place in a world that seems, on the surface, to have removed so many old difficulties. A person may stand in a heated room, drink clean water, eat food grown far away, use machines for travel, and still feel as if the body is holding something back. This is the quiet paradox at the center of human energy. Comfort increased in many visible ways, but the body did not become a simple machine for comfort. It remained an organism shaped by long periods of uncertainty. Its systems still listen for rhythm, effort, light, darkness, hunger, safety, movement, and rest. When those signals no longer arrive in the old patterns, the body may not respond with smooth strength. It may respond with confusion, with heaviness, with a sense that energy is present somewhere but not freely available. The beginning of this mismatch lies far behind the present day, not in one exact scene, but in the slow shaping of human life across changing environments. Early humans and their ancestors did not live inside fixed schedules, sealed rooms, and constant artificial brightness. Their bodies met the world directly through terrain, weather, distance, food, danger, and other people. We cannot honestly claim to know the exact feeling of a prehistoric morning or the private thoughts of a person walking through an ancient landscape. But we can say, with care, that human biology was formed under conditions where energy had to answer to the outside world. A warm day was not the same as a cold night. A full stomach was not the same as a hungry one. A safe resting place was not the same as an exposed one. A body alone was not the same as a body protected by a group. Energy was never separate from these conditions. It rose and fell with them, and over time the body became skilled at adjusting rather than simply producing more. This matters because modern life often asks for energy in a new form. It asks for steady attention, long focus, emotional restraint, fast response, social performance, and mental availability, often while the body barely moves. It asks people to stay awake under light that does not belong to sunset, to eat by the clock rather than by the landscape, to ignore tiredness when work continues, and to carry worry without a clear physical release. These are not the same demands that shaped the original human energy budget. They may be less brutal than hunger, cold, or open danger, but they are not weightless. They press on the brain, the nervous system, the hormonal rhythms, and the ordinary cycles of sleep and recovery. A body that once spent much of its effort moving through space may now spend effort sitting still while remaining alert. A body that once linked fatigue to visible labor may now feel fatigue from invisible strain. This is why the feeling of having something wrong with your energy can be so difficult to name. It is not always the dramatic collapse of strength. It can be a low fog. It can be the strange dullness after hours of doing almost nothing with the muscles. It can be the sense of waking already behind. It can be the body asking for movement when the day requires stillness, or asking for darkness when the room stays bright, or asking for quiet when the mind is filled with signals. In this way, the past does not sit behind us like a finished story. It continues as a set of biological expectations inside the present. The body expects effort to have a shape. It expects rest to have protection. It expects food, movement, and sleep to belong to a rhythm. It expects other people to matter. When those expectations are repeatedly stretched, energy may become uneven, not because the body is defective, and not because the past was perfect, but because an old system is being asked to serve a new arrangement. This first answer must stay gentle and unfinished. It does not explain everything. It does not reduce all fatigue to evolution. It only opens the door to a slower understanding. Human energy began as a negotiation with the world, and modern life has changed the world faster than it has changed the body. What feels like a private weakness may be one small echo of a much older bargain, still being carried quietly beneath the skin. There is a quiet mistake in the way modern life often imagines energy. It treats energy as if the highest goal is always to have more of it, to push harder, move faster, stay awake longer, and keep producing without interruption. But the older story of the human body points in a different direction. In the world where our basic biology was shaped, the first rule of energy was not endless strength. It was saving. A body that survived did not simply spend everything it had whenever effort was possible. It had to hold something in reserve, because the next demand could arrive without warning. Food might not come exactly when hunger appeared. Weather might change. A path might become longer than expected. A resting place might be poor. A child, an elder, an injury, or a dangerous situation could suddenly require attention. In such a world, the body that used energy carefully had an advantage over the body that burned through its resources without restraint. This does not mean early humans lived in constant panic, and it does not mean we can turn the past into a simple lesson about toughness. It means something more basic and more biological. Energy had to be managed before it could be displayed. Strength was useful, but strength without restraint could become costly. A powerful movement used at the wrong time might leave less for walking back, keeping warm, healing, or staying alert. The body was shaped not only by moments of action, but by the long spaces between action, when survival depended on patience, recovery, and the ability to wait. This older pattern still matters because the body does not know energy as a motivational idea. It knows energy through tissues, fuel, oxygen, hormones, temperature, sleep, and the nervous system. It knows that every choice has a trade-off, even when the mind does not notice the choice being made. When the body sends less energy toward one activity, it may be protecting another. When it slows you down, it may not be announcing failure. It may be following an ancient rule that says spending must be watched. Across deep human history, the body was repeatedly asked to balance movement with conservation. Walking across uneven land required endurance, but endurance is not the same as reckless force. Searching for food required effort, but also timing and attention. Staying warm required energy, but too much movement could also waste it. Resting saved energy, but rest had to happen in a place and a social setting where the body could lower its guard. Even digestion was part of this balance. Food gave energy, but processing food also required work from the body. Nothing was entirely separate. The legs, stomach, skin, immune system, muscles, and brain were all drawing from the same living budget. In modern life, this older rule can appear in confusing ways. A person may want to feel energetic all day, but the body may not be organized for that kind of steady output. It may still prefer waves, effort, pause, movement, rest, attention, release. It may still protect energy when sleep has been poor, when stress has lasted too long, when the body has not moved naturally, or when the mind has been forced to stay alert for hours without a clear ending. The result can feel like laziness from the inside, but it may be closer to conservation. The body holds back because holding back was once part of staying alive. This is why the title question cannot be answered by saying that modern people are simply weak or that the ancient past was somehow better. Neither claim is careful enough. The better question is why a body built around cautious spending now lives inside a world that asks for constant availability. The modern day often rewards the appearance of endless energy, but the human body came from a much older economy. It learned to survive by asking, silently and again, how much can be spent now, and what must be saved for later. One reason human energy can feel so guarded is that the body contains many quiet ways of slowing loss before it tries to create more. This is not a flaw in design, it is one of the oldest patterns of life. Living bodies do not only chase fuel, they also protect fuel. They reduce waste, adjust heat, change appetite, slow certain functions when pressure rises, and shift attention toward what seems most important. In human beings, these adjustments became part of a larger survival pattern. The body could not treat every day as a day of abundance. It had to be ready for hunger, cold, long movement, poor sleep, injury, infection, and emotional strain inside the group. So it learned to regulate energy in layers. Some layers are obvious, like the wish to rest after hard effort. Others are almost invisible, like changes in alertness, digestion, temperature, or the desire to move. The person may only feel the final result as heaviness, dullness, or a lack of drive, but beneath that feeling the body may be redistributing effort with old caution. In the deep background of human life, saving energy was not a single behavior. It was built into posture, pace, sleep, food use, social living, and even attention. A person moving across a difficult landscape could not spend strength as if the ground were flat and the next meal guaranteed. The feet, legs, lungs, and heart had to work, but they also had to avoid unnecessary waste. A group resting at night could not remain fully tense forever, yet it also could not ignore the world completely. A hungry body could not simply demand full power from every system at once. It had to choose, often without conscious thought, which processes could continue strongly and which could become quieter for a while. This is why energy conservation is not the same as laziness. Laziness is a moral word people often use when they are frustrated. Conservation is biological. It belongs to the way organisms survive when resources are limited and the future is uncertain. Human bodies did not develop in a world that rewarded spending energy just to prove that energy was there. They developed in a world where unnecessary effort could carry a cost later. The muscles had to be capable, but they also had to be protected from waste. The brain had to be alert, but not every signal deserved the same level of response. The immune system had to defend the body, but defense itself required energy. Reproduction, growth, repair, warmth, digestion, and movement all competed gently or strongly for the same resources. In this quiet competition, the body learned to prioritize. It could raise effort when needed, but it could also lower the flame when the situation suggested caution. Modern life often misunderstands this lowering of the flame. It may appear after only to decide after hours of worry, after too much light late at night, after irregular meals, or after social pressure that never turns into a clear action. The person looks at the day and thinks, nothing heavy happened, but the body may have been spending in ways that do not leave footprints. Attention is not weightless. Self-control is not weightless. Uncertainty is not weightless. Even the effort of staying still when the body expects motion can become a kind of strain. The older body, shaped around practical rhythms of movement and pause, may answer by becoming less generous with energy. It does not always open the gates simply because the clock says the day must continue. It may hold something back, not because danger is present in the ancient form, but because its systems still read imbalance as a reason to be careful. This is where the long beginning of human energy touches the modern morning. A person may wake and expect the body to give clean, steady power, yet the body may be asking older questions. Was sleep deep enough? Has movement been natural enough? Is stress ending, or only changing shape? Is food arriving in a rhythm the body can understand? Is there safety, warmth, and social steadiness? These questions are not spoken in words. They appear as sensations. They appear as fatigue that seems larger than the visible workload. They appear as a mind that wants to move forward and a body that quietly refuses to spend. The old rule remains: energy is not only for what you want now. It is also reserved for what the body thinks may be needed later. Energy does not always arrive when the mind asks for it. This may be one of the most difficult truths to accept, because modern life often treats the body as if it should obey a schedule made outside the body. Morning means alertness. Work means focus. A deadline means speed. A social moment means expression. A free hour means usefulness. But the body is older than these schedules. It does not release effort only because the day has been planned. It releases effort according to signals, rhythms, and conditions that began long before clocks, calendars, screens, and fixed work hours. In that older arrangement, energy was not meant to remain fully open all the time. It was guarded, raised, lowered, redirected, and sometimes withheld. A human being moving through an uncertain world needed the ability to spend, but also the ability not to spend. This restraint was not passive, it was active protection. If the body had poured strength into every impulse, every worry, every small movement, and every moment of alertness, it could have left too little for the demands that truly mattered. The deeper history of human energy is therefore not a story of constant power, but of careful timing. A body had to be able to walk for a long time without wasting force. It had to notice the world without living in permanent alarm. It had to digest food when food was available, but also endure periods when food was less certain. It had to rest, but not become helpless. It had to support the brain, but not let thought consume every resource. These balances were never perfect, and they were never identical for every person or every environment. Human groups lived in many different landscapes, climates, and seasons, and no single picture can honestly stand for all of them. Yet the broad biological lesson remains steady. Energy was valuable because it was limited. The body did not evolve as a lamp plugged into a wall. It evolved more like a living fire that must sense the wood, the wind, the cold, and the length of the night. This is why energy often comes in waves rather than in a straight line. There are moments when the body opens, when movement feels easier, when attention gathers, when warmth and food and sleep and purpose seem to align. Then there are moments when the body closes slightly, as if drawing its resources inward. In the past, such shifting could match the visible world more clearly. Daylight, temperature, distance, hunger, danger, and group activity gave the body strong signals about when to move and when to conserve. In the present, those signals can become blurred. Light may continue deep into the night. Work may begin before the body feels ready. Food may arrive without effort, but stress may remain unresolved. Movement may be absent, yet attention may be demanded for hours. The body is asked to stay available without receiving the old signs that effort is real, useful, and eventually finished. Under these conditions, the old habit of guarded energy can feel like something wrong. The person may think, "I should have more strength than this," but the body may be following a different logic. It may be reducing generosity because sleep was thin. It may be holding back because the nervous system has stayed alert too long. It may be lowering drive because movement has been too little and mental demand too much. It may be asking for a rhythm that modern life has made difficult to hear. This does not mean that every low-energy day has a deep evolutionary meaning. Ordinary causes still matter, and persistent exhaustion deserves careful attention in the real world. But the larger frame helps prevent a harsh misunderstanding. The body is not failing simply because it refuses to behave like a machine. Its reluctance may come from a much older intelligence, one that learned that spending everything was dangerous. Human energy was shaped by the need to keep something for later, for warmth after sunset, for walking after hunger, for healing after injury, for attention after fear, for another person who might need help. That older reserve still lives inside us. It may appear now in quiet forms, as afternoon heaviness, slow mornings, mental fog, or the strange feeling that energy is present but locked behind a door. Modern life often asks why the door is not open. The older body may be asking a different question. What has changed in the world around me, and why am I being asked to spend without a clear place to recover? The human body was not shaped around stillness as the normal state of the day. It was shaped around movement, but not always the dramatic movement that modern people imagine when they think of exercise. Much of the older human pattern was likely made from ordinary motion: standing, walking, bending, carrying, reaching, watching, resting, then moving again. The body was not always racing, and it was not always working at maximum effort. It moved in smaller waves, answering to the ground, to food, to weather, to other people, and to the slow demands of staying alive. This matters because energy does not only come from rest, it also comes from rhythm. A body that moves gently and often receives signals that help blood flow, muscles stay awake, joints remain used, and the nervous system understand that effort has a shape. When movement disappears for long stretches, the body may not simply save energy in a clean and useful way. It may become dull, heavy, and strangely tired, as if the fuel is present but the old pathways for using it have become quiet. In the long beginning of human life, sitting still for many hours in the same position was probably not the main pattern of daily survival. We should be careful here, because no one can describe one universal prehistoric day. Human groups lived across different landscapes and climates, and their behaviors changed with season, age, skill, food, danger, and social life. But the basic evidence from human anatomy, anthropology, and the comparison of living bodies suggests that humans are a walking species. Our legs, hips, feet, balance, sweating ability, and endurance all point toward a body that became unusually capable of steady movement across distance. This does not mean humans were built to be constantly exhausted. It means the body expects movement to be woven into the day, not locked away into a short appointment or removed almost completely. Modern life often breaks this older rhythm. A person may sit in a chair, ride in a vehicle, look at a screen, and remain physically safe while the eyes and brain work without pause. The muscles wait, the feet do little, the spine holds one shape, the hands make small repeated movements. The body is not resting in the ancient sense, because the mind is still active and the nervous system is still receiving signals. But the body is also not moving in the ancient sense, because the large muscles and breathing rhythms are not being used in a natural alternating way. This creates a strange middle state. It is not full work, and it is not true rest. It can leave a person tired without the satisfaction of having moved through the world. The older body may recognize effort best when effort is physical enough to be completed. A walk ends, a climb ends, a carried load is set down, a search has a direction, a shelter is reached, a fire is tended. These images should not be romanticized, because ancient life could be harsh and uncertain, but they show a kind of energy cycle that the body can understand. Effort rises, effort serves a purpose, effort lowers, and recovery begins. In many modern days, effort has no clear body. Messages continue, thoughts repeat, tasks multiply. Light stays on. The person remains seated, yet the demand does not stop. So the body may feel drained without having received the movement that helps define the day. This is one reason the title question reaches so far back. Something can feel wrong with energy, not only because modern people do too much, but also because they do too little of the kind of movement the body quietly expects. A body that came from walking, reaching, shifting, carrying, and resting near others may struggle when asked to stay folded in one place, while the mind carries the load. The result is not always pain. Sometimes it is a soft loss of vitality. The body becomes quiet in the wrong way. It saves but does not refresh. It rests but does not recover. It waits but does not feel ready. Human energy began in a moving relationship with the world, and when that relationship becomes too still, tiredness can appear even in the absence of visible hardship. A day built around natural movement is not the same as a day built around formal exercise. This difference is important because the older human body did not learn energy through short bursts separated from the rest of life. It learned energy through a repeated pattern of use and release. A person might walk, stop, bend, carry something, wait, turn toward a sound, sit for a while, rise again, follow others, search the ground, gather material, or move toward shade, water, warmth, or safety. These motions did not have to be intense to matter. Their power came from being woven into time. They kept the body in conversation with the world. The legs were not only tools for work, they were part of orientation. The hands were not only tools for strength, they were part of contact. The eyes, ears, feet, skin, and balance all worked together, giving the nervous system a steady stream of physical information. In such a life, energy was not stored in one place and then spent all at once. It circulated through small demands, small pauses, and small adjustments. Modern stillness interrupts that circulation. A person may sit for hours and then wonder why the body feels tired, even though almost no large movement has happened. But the body does not experience long stillness as pure rest. The muscles may become underused while the mind remains busy. The breathing may stay shallow while attention stays tense. The back and neck may hold quiet pressure while the legs receive little work. The eyes may continue taking in bright, close signals while the wider body waits for a reason to move. This creates an unnatural split. The brain is active, but the body is not fully participating. The ancient rhythm of movement, pause, is replaced by mental effort without enough physical change. In the older environments where human bodies took shape, movement usually carried context. Walking meant distance changing. Carrying meant weight with a purpose. Bending meant contact with the ground or with objects. Looking far away meant reading the land, the group, or the weather. Even resting had context, because rest came after motion or before motion, and it often happened inside a social and environmental setting. Today, a person can remain in nearly the same position while passing through many invisible demands. Work, worry, memory, decision, social expectation, and information can all arrive without the body changing place. The nervous system receives demand, but the limbs do not complete an answering motion. Over time, this may make energy feel trapped. It is not the clean tiredness that follows walking a long road. It is a more confusing fatigue, a tiredness without a clear story. The body has been asked to stay ready, but not allowed to move through readiness into action. This is where the long history of human movement becomes relevant to the feeling of energy today. Our species became unusually good at steady travel compared with many animals, not because every human was constantly powerful, but because the body could sustain repeated moderate effort. Walking uses many systems at once, but it does so in a rhythm the body understands. Blood flow, breathing, balance, vision, temperature regulation, and attention can all settle into a pattern. The mind may soften because the body has been given a task older than language and older than modern work. Again, this is not a health prescription, and it should not be turned into a simple cure for every kind of fatigue. But it helps explain why a life with less physical hardship can still feel strangely draining. Removing movement does not always save energy in the way we expect. Sometimes it removes the very rhythm that helps energy become available. The body may need small changes in position, repeated use of muscles, wider vision, and moments when effort has a beginning and an end. Without those signals, it may conserve, slow down, or feel heavy, as if waiting for a world that never arrives. The mismatch began because human energy was shaped by bodies moving through real space, while modern energy is often demanded from bodies held still in artificial spaces. The chair may protect the body from effort, but it can also silence the ancient conversation between movement and vitality. A strange kind of tiredness can appear when the body has not moved very much, but the mind has been used all day. It is different from the tiredness after a long walk, a day of carrying, or a period of steady physical work. That older tiredness has a clearer shape. The muscles know what happened. The breath remembers effort. The body can feel the distance between exertion and rest. But modern fatigue often has no such outline. A person may spend the day seated, warmed, fed, and protected, yet feel drained as if some hidden labour has taken place. The hidden labour is often attention. It is the work of looking, choosing, responding, controlling emotion, shifting between tasks, and staying available. The body may be still, but the nervous system is not still. It keeps reading signals, sorting priorities, and preparing for what might come next. In the long history of human life, alertness was usually tied more closely to action. A sound might lead to turning the head. A change in weather might lead to seeking shelter. Hunger might lead to movement. Social tension might lead to visible adjustment within the group. The body could answer the world with motion, posture, distance, voice, or shared activity. Today, many signals arrive without any natural completion. A message appears, but the body does not move through space. A worry arises, but there is no path to walk. A demand appears on a screen, but the legs remain folded. The eyes and brain keep working while the larger body waits. This can create a fatigue that feels almost disconnected from effort. It is not that nothing happened. It is that the thing that happened did not pass through the full body in the old way. This is one of the quieter reasons energy can feel wrong now. Human energy was shaped in a moving organism, not in a mind separated from its limbs. The brain and body evolved together. Thinking was not originally something that happened in a clean, silent room, apart from weather, hunger, direction, touch, and other people. The brain helped guide the body through the world, and the body gave the brain constant feedback. Movement changed breathing. Breathing changed arousal. Vision opened toward distance. Muscles sent signals. The ground itself gave information through the feet and balance. When modern life asks the brain to work intensely while the body remains almost unused, an older partnership is weakened. The brain carries demand, but the body does not receive enough ordinary movement to help organize that demand. The result can be a day that feels heavy without feeling complete. You may not feel the satisfying tiredness of having reached somewhere. You may feel only the dull tiredness of having remained available. This should not be turned into a claim that ancient humans were always healthier, happier, or more energetic. That would be too simple and not honest. Early environments could be difficult, and movement was often required because life was uncertain, not because it was ideal. But those environments did provide a physical structure that modern routines often remove. Effort had texture, distance had meaning, rest followed use. The body could sense when it had done something and when it could stop. In many modern days, the stopping point is blurred. Work can follow a person into the evening. Light can stretch the day beyond darkness. Worry can continue after the task is finished. The body may be seated, but the ancient systems that regulate energy may still behave as if the day has not fully ended. This is why too little natural movement can produce a tiredness that does not feel like rest. Stillness without safety, quiet, and recovery is not the same as restoration. Sitting without mental release is not the same as peace. A body shaped by walking, shifting, reaching, and pausing may not know how to feel fully alive inside a day where the muscles are quiet, but the mind is repeatedly pulled forward. Something is wrong with energy then, not because the body has forgotten how to work, but because work has changed its shape. The old human body expected effort to pass through the whole organism. Modern life often concentrates effort in attention alone. And when attention carries what movement once helped to carry, fatigue can settle in places that are difficult to name. Food is one of the clearest places where modern life seems to have solved an ancient problem, and yet energy still does not feel simple. For most people today, food is closer, more predictable, and easier to obtain than it was through much of human history. A meal can be bought, stored, delivered, heated, or eaten without walking far, digging, gathering, hunting, grinding, carrying, or waiting through a season. This is a remarkable change, and it has protected many lives from kinds of hunger that shaped earlier generations. But the body did not become a steady source of energy simply because food became more available. The older human body was shaped under conditions where food was not just a matter of desire. It was tied to weather, land, migration, season, tools, skill, social cooperation, and luck. Some days likely brought more, other days likely brought less. Across different environments and long stretches of time, human beings and their ancestors had to live with variation. We should be careful not to describe one universal prehistoric diet or one exact daily pattern, because there was never only one human way to eat. Coastlines, forests, grasslands, rivers, cold regions, dry regions, and changing climates all offer different possibilities. But the wider lesson is clear enough. The body learned energy in a world where food could not always be separated from effort and uncertainty. That lesson still matters. Eating is not only adding fuel to a tank, it is part of a larger biological conversation. The body must digest, absorb, store, release, and regulate what comes in. It must decide what to use now and what to hold for later. It must respond not just to the food itself, but to sleep, movement, stress, temperature, illness, and daily rhythm. In older settings, food and movement were often linked. To eat usually meant that some kind of activity had happened before it, whether searching, gathering, preparing, sharing, or travelling. The body received energy within a larger pattern of exertion and recovery. In modern life, that link can be weakened. Food may arrive with little movement, calories may be present while the body remains still, meals may come by the clock, by stress, by habit, or by convenience rather than by a rhythm the older body would have known. This does not make modern food bad in a simple way, and it does not mean the past was better. Hunger, scarcity, and poor nutrition were serious realities in many periods of human history. The point is quieter than that. Food became easier, but the energy system remained complex. The body still carries rules from a world where abundance could not be assumed, and where storing energy could be protective. A body that held on to fuel during uncertain times had a survival advantage over one that wasted it easily. A body that could reduce expenditure when intake was low, or use stored energy when food was delayed, was better prepared for a changing world. These old patterns are not moral choices, they are biological inheritances. They can help explain why energy today may feel uneven even when food is nearby. A person may eat and still feel tired. A person may have access to more food than earlier humans could count on, yet still experience afternoon heaviness, unstable alertness, or a strange distance between eating and feeling restored. Part of this may come from modern patterns that separate food from natural movement, darkness, rest, and social rhythm. Part of it may come from the way the brain uses food, not only for physical work, but also for attention, worry, and emotional control. Part of it may come from the body's older habit of storing, guarding, and adjusting, rather than simply turning every meal into immediate vitality. This is why the history of human energy cannot be told without the history of food. Long before energy became something measured by productivity, it was shaped by the question of how a living body survives between meals, across seasons, through cold, through movement, and within a group. Modern life has made food easier in many places, but it has also changed the rhythm around food. The body may no longer need to travel far to eat, yet it still carries systems that were formed when eating, moving, waiting, sharing, and conserving belong to the same long story. Something can feel wrong with energy because food solved one problem while revealing another. The body was never designed only to receive fuel. It was shaped to manage uncertainty around fuel. When food became more dependable in many human societies, energy did not become simple. This is one of the quiet surprises of history. Agriculture, storage, trade, cooking methods, markets, refrigeration, and modern transport all changed the relationship between hunger and daily life. In many places, food could be planned, preserved, counted, and made available with less direct contact with the land. This was a major human achievement, and it should not be dismissed. More reliable food supported larger communities, longer settlements, specialized work, and forms of culture that would have been difficult under constant movement and uncertainty. But the body itself did not suddenly become new. It still carried an older metabolism, an older appetite system, an older way of storing and releasing fuel. The world around food changed faster than the deep biological rules that handled food inside the body. That is why easier food did not automatically create steadier energy. It created a new environment for an old system. In the earlier human story, eating was usually surrounded by effort, time, and limitation. Food had to be found, gathered, hunted, prepared, carried, shared, protected, or waited for. Even after humans began farming, food remained tied to season, weather, labor, soil, storage, disease, conflict, and social organization. The meal was never only a private event. It belonged to a larger rhythm of bodies, land, and community. Modern eating can be very different. Food may appear quickly, without much movement before it and without much pause after it. The body may receive fuel while the muscles have barely worked, while the mind is tense, while the eyes remain fixed on a screen, or while the day continues at a speed the digestive system did not choose. The mouth eats in the present, but the body processes the meal through rules shaped in a much older world. Those rules include saving, they include storing, they include preparing for later need. They include responding differently depending on sleep, stress, movement, age, illness, and the pattern of previous meals. So a person may eat enough and still not feel clean energy. The body may be busy digesting. The brain may still be tired. The nervous system may still be alert. The muscles may remain underused. The day may contain food without containing rhythm. This is where the mismatch becomes subtle. Staying down. The modern mind may expect food to behave like an immediate switch. Eat, and energy should rise. Rest, and energy should return. But the body is not that direct. It asks what kind of food arrived, when it arrived, what the body was doing before it arrived, whether sleep has been stable, whether movement has been enough, whether stress has been prolonged, and whether the body needs to store more than spend. In ancient environments, this kind of caution was useful because the future was uncertain. In modern environments, the same caution can feel like sluggishness, heaviness, or uneven energy. The body may not be refusing life. It may be managing fuel according to older expectations. The change became even more complicated when food abundance separated from physical work. A body can now receive energy while spending very little physical energy to obtain it. This is comfortable, but biologically unusual. For most of human development, food and bodily effort were more closely connected, even though the exact pattern varied widely between groups and landscapes. Movement helped organize appetite, circulation, temperature, sleep pressure, and the feeling of having earned rest. When that link weakens, food may fill the stomach without giving the whole body the old sense of completion. Energy becomes available in one sense, but disordered in another. The person is not hungry, yet not lively, fed, yet foggy, safe, yet tired. This does not mean modern people should imitate the past, or that ancient diets offer a perfect answer. That would be too simple, and often misleading. The deeper point is that the body's energy system was shaped for relationship, not isolation. Food belonged with movement, daylight, effort, sharing, waiting, and sleep. When food becomes easier but those surrounding rhythms become weaker, the body may still struggle to turn abundance into calm, steady strength. Something feels wrong because the old body is meeting a new food world, and it is trying to manage plenty with tools shaped by uncertainty. Modern energy can become strange because the body is surrounded by food, yet still carries the memory of uncertainty in its deepest systems. This is not memory in the personal sense. It is not a remembered story or a thought from the past. It is biological inheritance, shaped across generations by the need to survive when fuel was uneven, effort was necessary, and the future could not be guaranteed. A body that learned to store, slow down, and protect resources did not lose those tendencies simply because food became easier to reach. It still asks old questions beneath the surface of modern life. Is there enough for later? Should energy be spent now or held back? Is the body moving enough to use what has arrived? Is sleep deep enough to restore what was spent? Is stress ending or only continuing in another form? These questions do not appear as language. They appear as appetite, heaviness, alertness, warmth, restlessness, fog, or fatigue. This is why a person may live in a world of abundance and still feel as if energy is unreliable. The mismatch is not just between hunger and food. It is between an old rhythm of getting, using, storing, and resting, and a new rhythm in which food can appear without movement. Stress can continue without action, and the day can remain bright long after the body expects darkness. In the older human world, food was part of a wider cycle. There was effort before eating, social meaning around sharing, time spent preparing, and often a stronger relationship between daylight, movement, hunger, and rest. We should not imagine this as peaceful or perfect. It could be hard, uncertain, and dangerous, but it gave the body context. Food came inside a pattern the body could understand. Modern food often arrives outside that pattern. A person may eat quickly, while tense, while seated, while working, while watching, while thinking about the next demand. The stomach receives food, but the whole organism may not receive the signal that the day has slowed down. The body may be fueled, but still guarded. It may be supplied, but not settled. That difference matters. Energy is not only chemistry, it is chemistry inside a living rhythm. When the rhythm is broken, more fuel does not always become more vitality. It can become weight, sleepiness, distraction, or an uneven rise and fall that feels difficult to explain. The ancient body was not shaped to live in constant shortage alone, and it was not shaped to live in constant plenty either. It was shaped to adjust. It could use food when available, hold reserves when needed, lower spending during strain, and shift resources toward repair, warmth, movement, or defense. These adjustments helped humans endure many environments, from cold regions to warmer landscapes, from mobile lives to settled communities. But in modern life, adjustment can feel like instability. The body may store when the mind wants lightness. It may slow when the schedule asks for speed. It may become sleepy after eating because digestion asks for attention from within. It may ask for movement because food arrived without the physical work that once surrounded it. It may ask for rest because the brain has been using energy in invisible ways all day. So the problem is not that food failed to give energy. The problem is that energy was never meant to be separated from the full conditions of living. This is where the title reaches back into human origins again. Something feels wrong with your energy, because the modern body is asked to perform a strange task, to turn constant access into constant readiness. But the older body was not built for constant readiness. It was built for careful response. It was built to notice change, to conserve when needed, to spend when necessary, and to recover when the environment allowed. Food became easier in many ways, but the body's relationship with energy remained cautious. It still carries a system shaped by long periods when fuel had to be respected, not assumed. This does not mean the past gives a simple answer, or that modern tiredness has only one cause. It means that the feeling of uneven energy belongs to a longer human story, a story where eating, moving, waiting, sleeping, sharing, and saving were never separate. And when modern life separates them, the body may still keep trying to put them back together, quietly, imperfectly, beneath the skin. Sleep is where the question of energy becomes quiet, because much of what gives the body strength happens when the person is no longer trying to be strong. In modern life, sleep is often treated as a private habit, something placed at the end of the day after work. Light, noise, worry, food, and screens have already taken their share. But in the longer human story, sleep was not separate from the world. It followed darkness, temperature, safety, sound, social closeness, hunger, weather, and the shape of the place where people rested. A body did not simply decide to recover. It recovered inside conditions that either allowed the nervous system to lower its guard or kept it partly watchful. This matters because daytime energy is not created only during the day. It is built through the night, through repair, memory processing, immune activity, hormone rhythms, temperature changes, and the gradual settling of the brain and body. If sleep becomes shallow, delayed, broken, or surrounded by too much stimulation, the next day may begin with less available energy before any visible work has happened. The older human body learned sleep under skies that changed with evening and morning. It knew darkness not as decoration, but as a strong signal. It knew cold not as an inconvenience alone, but as a condition that asked the body to protect warmth. It knew sound not only as background, but as information. Wind, animals, water, voices, fire, footsteps, and silence could all matter in ways that are difficult to recreate in a modern room. We should be careful not to claim exactly how early humans slept every night, because sleep likely varied by climate, season, group, danger, age, and available shelter. But we can say that human sleep developed in close contact with the natural environment and with other people. The sleeping body was not just an individual body on a soft surface. It was a vulnerable organism inside a landscape. Energy in the morning depended partly on how well that vulnerability had been protected. This is one reason modern comfort can feel incomplete. A person may sleep on a bed, under a roof, with walls, blankets, and controlled temperature, yet still wake unrested. The material comfort is real, but recovery also depends on rhythm. If light reaches the eyes late into the evening, the brain may not receive darkness in the old way. If sounds continue without meaning or rest, the nervous system may remain lightly prepared. If the mind carries unresolved pressures into the night, the body may lie down without fully stepping out of demand. The older sleep system expects a gradual descent: less light, less activity, cooler air, slower movement, social safety, and a clear difference between day and night. Modern life often blurs that difference. The room can be bright at midnight. Work can continue through a small glowing screen. Worry can travel into bed without changing shape. The body is horizontal, but the day has not truly ended. In early human environments, sleep may also have been less isolated than it is for many people now. Humans are social animals, and rest within a group could offer warmth, information, and protection. Again, the details varied widely, and it would be wrong to describe one simple ancient sleep pattern as if it belonged to all people. Still, the broader point remains: sleep was connected to safety. A body that feels unsafe does not surrender energy easily. It may remain lightly alert, even when tired. It may wake often. It may keep part of its attention near the surface. In modern life, the threat may not be an animal outside the shelter or cold air crossing the ground. It may be debt, loneliness, conflict, responsibility, noise, or the pressure to be ready again too soon. The form has changed, but the body still responds through old pathways of vigilance and recovery. This brings the title question back to its deeper beginning. Something can feel wrong with energy because sleep has changed its environment. The body still asks for darkness, timing, protection, coolness, quiet, and social steadiness. But the modern night often gives comfort without true descent. It gives a bed without silence, privacy without safety, light without sunset, rest time without release. The result may be a tiredness that feels unfair in the morning because the person believes they were resting. Yet the older body may have spent the night partly awake beneath the surface, guarding energy instead of restoring it fully. Human energy started long ago in a world where sleep was not an escape from life, but one of life's most delicate negotiations with darkness. When that negotiation is disturbed, the next day carries the trace. Daytime energy is often judged by what happens after waking. but the body begins preparing that energy long before the morning arrives. Sleep is not only a pause from activity, it is part of the body's work. During sleep, the organism repairs small forms of wear, organizes memory, regulates many internal rhythms, and allows the nervous system to move away from constant alertness. The person may be unaware of this work, but the next day depends on it. A body that has not been allowed to descend deeply enough into recovery may still stand, speak, eat, and think, yet something in its energy feels thin. It may function, but not feel restored. This is why sleep cannot be separated from the long history of human energy. The body that wakes in the modern morning is still a body shaped by nights that once belonged to darkness, cool air, surrounding sounds, uneven ground, shared protection, and the slow fading of daylight. In that older world, rest was not simply a choice made by an individual mind. It was an event shaped by the environment. Night changed what could be seen. Temperature changed what the body had to defend. The presence of others changed how safely the nervous system could loosen its grip. The body's energy for the next day was built inside this relationship between vulnerability and protection. Modern sleep often looks safer from the outside, and in many ways it is. Roofs, beds, medicine, heating, cooling, and secure rooms are real improvements. They have reduced many dangers and discomforts that earlier humans could not easily escape. But modern sleep can still be disturbed in ways that the older body treats as important. Light can reach the eyes when the body is expecting darkness. Noise can continue without a clear source or meaning. Mental pressure can remain active after the body lies down. Social stress can follow a person into silence. The day can stretch into the night through work, worry, entertainment, and information. The body may be placed in bed, but the signals around it may not fully say that the day is over. When that happens, recovery becomes less complete. A person may sleep for many hours and still wake with a strange sense of unfinished rest. This does not mean that ancient sleep was perfect, or that modern sleep is always poor. It means the body's sleep system is sensitive to conditions older than modern schedules. It pays attention to timing, light, temperature, safety, and repeated rhythm. These signals help the body know when to lower alertness and when to prepare for activity again. When the signals are inconsistent, energy can become inconsistent too. The body may wake before it is ready, or remain heavy after waking. The mind may ask for focus, but the nervous system may still be carrying the residue of a night that did not feel fully safe or fully dark. In the deep beginning of human life, sleep and waking were probably more closely tied to environmental change than they are for many people today. Sunset, firelight, cold, group movement, seasonal variation, and morning brightness gave the body strong cues. We cannot describe these nights as one single pattern for all humans, because human lives varied across climates and cultures. Still, the broad connection between light, darkness, and biological rhythm is well established. The body does not treat light as neutral, it uses light as information. It does not treat night as empty time, it uses night as a space for restoration. When artificial light and late stimulation weaken the boundary between day and night, the body may lose part of the rhythm that once helped energy rise and fall. This is one of the quiet ways modern life can make energy feel wrong. The problem may not be that the body refuses to recover. It may be that recovery has been placed inside conditions that do not fully resemble rest. A bed can hold the body, but it cannot by itself quiet the nervous system. A closed door can create privacy, but not always safety. Darkness can be delayed, noise can be constant, and the mind can remain occupied with demands that have no physical ending. So the morning arrives, and the person wonders why strength feels distant. The answer may begin not with the morning, but with the night before, and with many nights before that. Human energy is renewed through sleep, but sleep itself was shaped long ago by a world where darkness, safety, and recovery had to find each other slowly. Artificial light changed the human night without changing the body as quickly. For most of our deeper history, darkness arrived as a powerful boundary. It did not make life simple, and it did not always make people safe, but it changed the conditions of the body. Vision narrowed, air cooled, movement slowed, voices lowered. The world became harder to read at a distance. In that setting, the body had reasons to shift away from outward effort and toward protection, warmth, repair, and social closeness. Modern life can keep the body inside brightness long after that older boundary would have appeared. A room can remain lit. A screen can hold attention close to the face. Work can continue after sunset as if the day has not ended. Entertainment can keep the mind awake even when the muscles are still. The body receives mixed signals. The clock may say night, but the eyes may still report day. The person may want rest, but the nervous system may still feel invited to respond. This is not a small change in the story of energy. It changes the doorway into recovery. If the body does not clearly enter night, it may not clearly leave the demands of the day. In the long beginning of human life, waking and sleeping were tied to environmental rhythms that modern rooms can now override. Fire, moonlight, weather, group activity, and seasonal changes likely shaped many different sleep patterns, and it would be dishonest to claim that all early humans slept in one exact way. But the broad fact remains that the human body evolved with regular exposure to natural light and darkness. These signals help organize internal timing. They help the body understand when to be alert and when to lower alertness. When artificial light stretches the evening, that older timing can become less distinct. The body may still lie down, but it may do so after hours of stimulation that keep the brain near the surface. Then morning arrives, and energy feels thin. Not always because sleep was absent, but because the descent into sleep was delayed, broken, or made shallow. The modern schedule adds another layer. Many people wake, not because the body has completed its own rhythm, but because a demand outside the body calls them back. Work, school, care, noise, or responsibility can begin before the organism feels naturally ready. This is very different from a life in which waking was more often shaped by light, temperature, hunger, group movement, and the gradual return of the day. Again, the past should not be idealized. Earlier nights could be cold, dangerous, uncomfortable, and interrupted, but they belong to a world where night and day were harder to confuse. Modern life gives protection from many old hardships, while also creating a new problem. The body can be kept mentally awake in a physically resting place. A person can be in bed while still carrying the day. The muscles may not move, but the mind continues to answer, remember, compare, plan, regret, and anticipate. This is one reason tiredness may feel so unfair. The person may say, "I rested," but the body may have experienced only partial release. Rest is not only the absence of movement, it is the lowering of demand. If the room is quiet, but the mind is still full of signals, the older body may remain guarded. If the night is dark, but sleep timing is irregular, the rhythm may remain unsettled. If the body is warm, but socially or emotionally strained, the nervous system may not fully accept safety. Human energy depends on these quiet permissions. It rises more steadily when the body has been allowed to stop defending, stop sorting, stop preparing, and stop answering the world for a while. The mismatch is that modern life can remove visible hardship while preserving invisible demand. It can give a soft bed and a bright screen, a locked door and an anxious mind, a long evening and no true ending. So when energy feels wrong in the morning, the origin may not be only in what happened after waking. It may be in the blurred border between night and day. The body still carries an ancient expectation that darkness should mean a change in the whole organism. When night becomes only a different setting for the same attention, recovery becomes less complete, and the next day begins with a body that has slept, but has not fully returned from the long work of staying awake. The human brain is one of the most expensive things the body carries. It does not feel heavy in the way a load feels heavy in the hands, but it asks for a steady share of the body's resources every day. Even when the body is still, the brain is not silent. It watches, predicts, remembers, compares, listens, organizes movement, manages emotion, and builds a picture of what may happen next. This cost is easy to miss because thinking does not always look like labor. A person can sit in a chair and appear to be doing very little, while the brain is using energy to hold attention, control reactions, solve small problems, and remain ready for interruption. In the deeper human story, this expensive brain grew before life became easy. It did not appear after comfort, supermarkets, warm rooms, and predictable schedules. It developed through a long relationship with uncertain environments, changing food, social life, tools, danger, learning, and cooperation. The brain became powerful not because the world was simple, but because the world required careful adjustment. To live as a human being meant more than moving through land. It meant remembering where things might be found, reading faces and voices, learning from others, using hands and tools, caring for children for many years, and making decisions inside a group. These abilities carried enormous value, but they were not free. The same body that needed energy for walking, warmth, digestion, healing, and reproduction also had to feed a brain that kept growing in importance. This created a deep trade-off. Human energy was never only muscle energy. It was also attention energy, memory energy, social energy, and planning energy. Long before modern work made people mentally tired, the human body had already become an organism in which the brain asked for a large and constant place in the budget. This is one reason fatigue can feel strange today. Modern life often removes some physical demands while increasing the demands placed on attention. The body may not be crossing valleys, carrying food, or enduring cold wind, but the brain may be asked to stay active for hour after hour without a natural pause. It must read messages, control emotion, make choices, remember tasks, filter noise, ignore distractions, and respond to social signals that arrive through screens rather than faces. The form is new, but the cost is real. The older brain evolved to help a moving body act in a changing world. Today, that same brain may be asked to carry a changing world while the body barely moves. The result can be a kind of exhaustion that feels invisible. There may be no aching legs, no long road behind you, no physical proof that effort has been spent, yet something has been consumed. The brain has been using the body's energy in a quiet and continuous way. In early human life, thinking was probably more tied to immediate surroundings. A decision might relate to food, weather, direction, another person, a child, a tool, a sound, or a place to rest. We cannot claim to know the private thoughts of ancient people, and we should not invent them. But we can say that human cognition developed as part of embodied life. Thought served action, memory served movement, and attention served survival inside a real environment. Modern thought can be more abstract, more continuous, and more detached from the body's old signals of completion. A task can finish, yet the mind continues. A worry can have no clear place to go. A message can reopen attention after the body has begun to settle. The brain keeps asking for fuel, but the organism does not always receive the rhythm of movement, darkness, social closeness, and rest that once helped balance that cost. This brings the title back into focus. Something may feel wrong with your energy because the most demanding organ in your body was shaped before the world became comfortable, and now it is being used in ways that are intense, prolonged, and often disconnected from physical life. The brain was an evolutionary achievement, but it was also an energy demand. It helped humans survive uncertainty, but it did not make human energy unlimited. It made the budget more complex. The tiredness you feel after a day of thinking may not be imaginary. It may be the modern expression of an ancient fact. The mind is carried by the body, and the body must pay for the mind. Thinking feels weightless because it leaves no footprints on the ground, yet the body still pays for it. A memory held in place, a decision delayed, an emotion controlled, a worry repeated, a conversation carefully managed. All of these can ask the brain to keep working even when the hands are still. The cost is not always dramatic. It may not feel like lifting a stone or walking uphill. It may feel more like a slow dimming from inside. The eyes remain open, the face remains calm, the body remains seated, but attention is being spent. In the older human story, the brain's work was already demanding, but it was often tied to things the body could touch, hear, follow, carry, or leave behind. A person had to remember paths, recognize plants and animals, understand tools, learn from elders, care for children, read social tension, and make choices that affected the group. These were mental tasks, but they were not separate from movement, landscape, hunger, weather, and other people standing nearby. The brain worked inside the body's full contact with the world. Modern mental effort can be different. It can continue in a narrow space, under steady light, through symbols, screens, numbers, messages, and expectations that arrive faster than the body can physically answer. The brain may be asked to manage many small unfinished loops at once. One thought leads to another. One message opens another responsibility. One decision waits behind another decision. Nothing seems heavy enough to explain exhaustion, yet the mind keeps spending from the same biological budget that supports the rest of the organism. This is why mental fatigue should not be dismissed as imaginary. The brain is living tissue. It needs oxygen, fuel, blood flow, sleep, and recovery. It does not float above biology. When it remembers, predicts, suppresses emotion, filters distraction, or stays alert for long periods, it is participating in the body's energy economy. In deep human history, this economy had to include thinking, because thinking helped survival. A group that could learn, cooperate, notice patterns, and pass knowledge across generations had powerful advantages. But every advantage had a cost. A larger, more active brain meant a body that had to feed it, protect it, cool it, and organize life around its long development. Human childhood became unusually extended compared with many animals, and learning became central to becoming fully human. That long period of dependence and teaching created rich social worlds, but it also tied energy to care, memory, communication, and emotional regulation. Energy was never only the strength to move, it was also the quiet effort of staying connected, understanding others, and carrying knowledge forward. In modern life, those older social and cognitive demands have not disappeared. They have multiplied into new forms. A person may carry work roles, family roles, financial concerns, social comparison, information overload, and constant self-monitoring. The brain reads not only faces, but words on screens. It responds not only to voices nearby, but to distant demands. It remembers not only the path to food or shelter, but passwords, schedules, messages, obligations, mistakes, and imagined futures. The ancient brain was built to predict, but modern life gives it more possibilities to predict than it can calmly finish. It was built to notice social meaning, but modern signals can arrive without tone, touch, or shared physical presence. It was built to solve problems, but many modern problems cannot be solved by one clear action. They remain open, and open problems keep drawing energy. This is where tiredness can become confusing. The body may not have moved enough to feel physically used, yet the brain may have carried a long day of invisible work. The person may feel guilty for being tired because the labor cannot be seen, but the deeper history of the body suggests a more careful view. The brain became expensive because it helped humans live in complex worlds. Now it is placed inside a world that is complex in a different way, faster, brighter, more crowded with signals, and less clearly tied to bodily action. Something feels wrong with energy because the mind keeps asking from the body, and the body keeps paying, quietly, from an ancient budget that was never endless. The modern brain is often asked to stay open longer than the body knows how to support. It wakes to signals, moves through signals, works through signals, and often ends the day still surrounded by signals. Some of these signals are useful, some are harmless. Some are emotional, social, financial, or practical, but to the nervous system they still require sorting. The brain must decide what matters, what can be ignored, what might be dangerous, what must be remembered, and what response is expected. This constant sorting may not look like effort from the outside. A person may sit quietly with no visible struggle, while the mind moves from one demand to another without true rest. In the older human world, attention was also vital, but it was more closely tied to the body's place in real space. A sound had a direction, a person had a face, a path had a distance, a task had material limits. Hunger, cold, shelter, tools, children, and group movement gave attention a physical setting. The brain was expensive, but it was not usually asked to live in permanent abstraction. It helped the body act. It helped the group coordinate. It helped memory serve the next movement. Modern life can separate attention from action. A person can worry without moving, prepare without completing, respond without closure, and receive information without a clear way to use it. The brain remains active, but the body does not receive the older signals that effort has passed through the world and come to an end. This creates a kind of fatigue that feels unfinished. It is not only the tiredness of too much work, it is the tiredness of too much mental continuation. The task ends, but the thought remains. The conversation ends, but the emotion remains. The day ends, but the screen continues. The body lies down, but the brain has not been given darkness, silence, movement, and safety in the old sequence that once helped it slow. This does not mean the brain is weak. It means the brain is costly, and modern life often spends that cost without giving the full organism a matching rhythm of recovery. In deep human history, the growing brain depended on food, cooperation, long childhood, learning, and social care. It was not a private machine sealed inside the skull. It belonged to a whole way of living. The body supported the brain, and the group supported the body. Knowledge was held not only by one person, but by relationships, practice, imitation, and shared memory. Today, much more of life can feel as if it must be carried inside one individual mind. Schedules, choices, identities, responsibilities, messages, plans, worries, and self-control can crowd into a single person's attention. The brain that once helped humans respond to a landscape may now be asked to hold an invisible landscape of obligations. The cost accumulates quietly. It can appear as fog, irritability, heaviness, shallow focus, or the feeling that energy has vanished even though the body has barely moved. This is where the story of energy becomes less about strength and more about attention. The brain can pull energy away from the sense of physical vitality. When mental demand is high, the body may feel slower, not because the muscles are incapable, but because the whole system is already allocating resources to watchfulness, control, memory, and prediction. A person may feel tired after sitting because sitting did not mean resting. It meant thinking without enough movement. It meant alertness without enough action. It meant effort without enough release. The ancient body may respond by narrowing available energy, as if protecting the organism from further spending. This older protection can feel frustrating inside modern expectations. The world asks for steady focus, pleasant emotion, quick replies, and constant readiness. The body answers with limits. Those limits are not always signs of damage. Sometimes they are reminders that the mind and body were never separate economies. The energy used by thought is energy taken from the same living source that warms the hands, moves the legs, digests food, repairs tissues, and prepares for sleep. Something feels wrong with your energy, because the modern brain is asked to remain active in a way that earlier human life rarely required. Long hours of mental demand, little bodily movement, blurred endings, and recovery that begins too late. The expensive brain came first before life became easy. Now it carries a world of invisible tasks, and the older body must keep paying for them. Stress is another place where modern energy becomes difficult to understand, because the body does not experience stress only as an idea. It experiences stress as preparation. Muscles may tighten, attention may narrow, breathing may change, sleep may become lighter, appetite may shift, and the body may begin to hold energy for action. This response is not meaningless. It belongs to an older biological system that helped living bodies meet pressure when pressure had a clear shape. In the long beginning of human life, many forms of strain were physical, immediate, and connected to the surrounding world. Cold asked the body to defend warmth. Hunger asked the body to search, wait, or conserve. Injury asked for repair. Distance asked for movement. A loud sound, an unfamiliar presence, a storm, a conflict inside the group, or an unsafe resting place could change the body's state quickly. These pressures were serious and sometimes dangerous, but they often had a more direct relationship with action. The body prepared because something might need to be done. Run, hide, climb, carry, gather, protect, call out, move closer to others, or become still and watchful. Stress was not always brief. An ancient life should not be simplified into neat moments of danger followed by perfect calm. There were long hardships too, seasonal scarcity, sickness, loss, conflict, migration, and uncertainty. But many stress signals in older environments were tied to things the body could physically meet. The organism could spend energy in response to a demand that had weight, direction, temperature, distance, sound, or social meaning. Modern stress often changes that relationship. A person may feel pressure from a message, a deadline, a debt, a memory, a future worry, a social comparison, or a responsibility that cannot be solved by one movement. The body still prepares, but the action may be unclear. The nervous system becomes alert, yet the legs stay still. The mind expects consequence, yet the hands cannot remove the threat. The heart may speed, but there is no hill to climb. The muscles may tighten, but there is no load to carry. The body has entered preparation without completion. This is costly. Preparation uses energy. Watchfulness uses energy. Emotional control uses energy. The body cannot remain ready forever without drawing from the same resources that support digestion, repair, sleep, attention, and warmth. In an older world, when a stressful moment passed, the body often received some signal of change. The animal moved away, the weather cleared, the group settled, the fire was restored, food was found or not found. The path was crossed, the conflict ended or shifted into visible behavior. Again, not always, and not perfectly, but the body could often read the outside world for signs that effort had reached an ending. In modern life, many pressures do not end in a way the body can easily recognize. A work concern may remain open for weeks. A financial worry may have no clear physical boundary. Social tension may live in silence. News and images may bring distant danger into the nervous system without giving the body any direct role in resolving it. The result is a form of stress that becomes detached from action. The older body still treats it as something that may require energy, so it keeps energy guarded. Over time, this can feel like tiredness. Not the tiredness of having walked far, but the tiredness of having stayed prepared too long. This brings the title back into focus again. Something feels wrong with energy because modern life can keep the body in a state of low preparation without giving it the old cycle of response and release. The human stress system was not built as an enemy. It was built as protection. It helped the body direct energy toward what mattered when the world pressed close. But when pressure becomes constant, abstract, and unfinished, protection can become draining. The body may conserve because it does not know when the demand will end. It may lower vitality because too much has already been spent on watchfulness. It may make the day feel heavy before any obvious labor has begun. Long ago, stress often arrived with cold air, hunger, distance, danger, or visible conflict. Today, it may arrive as a thought in a quiet room, and the body still answers as if the whole organism must be ready. The body's response to pressure is useful because it changes priorities quickly. When something seems important or threatening, the body can become more alert. It can send more attention toward the outside world. It can shift blood flow, change breathing, sharpen hearing, lighten sleep, alter appetite, and prepare muscles for action. These changes are not mistakes. They are part of a protective system that is far older than modern worry. In an ancient landscape, a body that could become alert at the right time was more likely to survive than a body that stayed calm through every signal. Cold, hunger, injury, conflict, unfamiliar sounds, and unsafe places all required the organism to adjust. Energy had to move toward the problem. The deeper issue is that this system works best when pressure has a shape, a beginning, and some possible ending. It was not made for a life where the body stays quietly braced for hours, days, or years around problems that cannot be met by movement. Modern stress often has no clear edge. A person can worry about work while sitting still. They can carry financial pressure while eating. They can feel social judgment while alone in a room. They can read about danger far away and still feel the body prepare as if something nearby must be answered. The nervous system does not always separate thought from environment as cleanly as the modern mind would like. A future problem can pull energy into the present. A memory can tighten the body even when the danger is gone. An unfinished message can keep attention slightly open. The body begins to live in a state of low readiness. Not enough to run, not enough to fight, not enough to act, but enough to keep spending. That spending is quiet, and because it is quiet, people often underestimate it. A body that stays alert may have less freedom for deep digestion, full rest, relaxed breathing, patient attention, and easy movement. A mind that keeps watching for what might happen next may feel productive at first, but over time it can make energy feel guarded and unavailable. In the older human story, stress and recovery were connected to the physical world in more visible ways. A storm passed, a fire was rebuilt, a group moved closer together, a path was finished, food was found, or the search had to pause. A tense moment inside the group became visible in voices, distance, gesture, or repair. None of this means ancient life was emotionally simple. It was not. But the body often receives stronger signals about when a demand had changed. Modern pressure can remain suspended. It can live in calendars, bills, expectations, unresolved conversations, health concerns, and imagined outcomes. The body keeps preparing, but the preparation has nowhere to go. Energy is held back because the system cannot be sure the pressure has ended. This helps explain why modern fatigue can feel like being tired before doing anything. The body may have already been working in the background. It may have spent the night lightly alert. It may have carried tension through the shoulders, jaw, stomach, and breath. It may have used attention to monitor small risks that never became visible action. By morning, the person sees no obvious labor and feels confused by the heaviness. But the older body has been paying for readiness. It has been protecting itself according to rules shaped long before screens, offices, and abstract deadlines. This does not mean stress is always harmful, and it does not mean all tiredness comes from stress. Short pressure can focus the body. Clear effort can be followed by release. The problem appears when pressure becomes constant, vague, and unresolved. Then the protective system can begin to consume the energy it was meant to defend. Something feels wrong with your energy, because the body is still using an ancient method of preparation in a world where many threats are invisible, delayed, symbolic, or impossible to finish with one act. The body is not foolish for responding. It is old. It learned to survive by taking pressure seriously, and it still does so, even when the pressure arrives as a thought that no one else can see. Modern fatigue can come from doing too much, but it can also come from preparing too much. This is harder to notice, because preparation does not always look like work. A person may sit quietly at a table, lie awake in a dark room, answer ordinary messages, or move through a day that appears uneventful, while the body keeps holding itself close to readiness. The shoulders may remain slightly raised, the breath may stay shallow, the stomach may feel unsettled, the mind may keep checking for what has been forgotten. None of these things looks like lifting, walking, carrying, or running, yet they are not free. The body spends energy whenever it remains alert, without resolution. In the older human story, readiness often had a clearer purpose. A sound in the dark, a change in weather, hunger in the group, a difficult crossing, a conflict nearby, or the need to protect a child could all call energy forward. The body prepared, and then something happened. The person moved, waited, hid, spoke, gathered, searched, warmed, rested, or returned to others. The cycle was not always quick. An ancient hardship could certainly last. But many pressures were connected to a world the body could meet with action. Modern pressure often enters through the mind and stays there. It may be a future bill, a message not yet answered, a fear of failing, a memory of embarrassment, a long responsibility, or a vague sense of being behind. The body responds as if readiness is required, but there is no clear path for the readiness to travel. Energy becomes trapped in anticipation. This creates a tiredness that does not feel earned, because no visible act has used the strength. But the nervous system has been acting in its own way. It has been guarding. It has been scanning. It has been preventing full rest. It has been keeping certain doors half open, in case something more must be done. The cost gathers slowly. Sleep may become lighter, and the morning begins without a full sense of repair. Digestion may feel less settled. Attention may become narrow. The body may feel both restless and exhausted, as if it wants to move but has nowhere meaningful to go. This is the strange burden of modern stress. The organism prepares for action inside a life that often requires stillness, politeness, patience, and delayed response. The ancient body expected pressure to change the body's relationship with the world. Modern life often asks pressure to remain internal. In a meeting, a person may not show fear. In a family role, a person may hide exhaustion. In financial worry, a person may not have one clear movement that solves the problem. In constant information, the body may witness more than it can affect. The energy system then lives in a prolonged middle state, not relaxed, not fully acting, not safe enough to release, not threatened enough to complete a response. Over time, this middle state can become draining. It can make ordinary tasks feel heavier than they are. It can make rest feel incomplete. It can make the body less willing to give energy freely, because some part of the system keeps reserving power for an unfinished demand. This does not mean people should blame themselves for being tired, and it does not mean every modern problem has an ancient explanation. Human life is too varied for one answer, but the deeper history of stress helps explain why low energy may appear when the visible workload is small. The body is not only counting tasks, it is counting tension. It is counting uncertainty. It is counting how long the system has remained prepared without release. In the world where human energy began, preparation was useful because action might soon be needed. In the modern world, preparation can become constant because the mind can keep danger alive without the world changing around the body. Something feels wrong with your energy because the old stress system is still serious, still protective, and still expensive. It draws from the same limited budget that powers thought, movement, warmth, repair, and sleep. When that system stays on too long, the body may protect what remains by lowering vitality. It may make you slow, not because you're unwilling to live, but because an older part of you has been living as if something remains unresolved. And maybe that is one of the quiet losses of modern life. Not that we face more danger than our ancestors, but that many of our dangers no longer give the body a clear moment when it can finally stand down. Human energy was not originally a private possession. It was shared before it was individual. This may be difficult to feel in modern life, where people often measure energy as if it belongs entirely to one person. Your motivation, your discipline, your morning routine, your focus, your weakness, your failure. But the human body did not become human in isolation. It developed inside groups, families, kin networks, friendships, care, cooperation, conflict, teaching, and dependence. A single body had limits, and those limits mattered. No person could be alert all the time. No person could gather every kind of food, protect every child, remember every path, make every tool, watch every sound, and recover from every hardship alone. Human energy was always partly supported by other human beings. In the long beginning of our species, survival depended not only on what one body could do, but on how bodies could take turns carrying the burden of life. Someone could watch while another rested. Someone could know a place, a plant, a tool, a story, a season, or a danger that another person did not know. Someone could carry a child, share food, tend fire, notice sickness, remember a path, or help repair a social bond. These examples should not be turned into a perfect picture of ancient kindness, because human groups have always contained tension, inequality, fear, and loss, as well as care. But the broad point is deeply accepted. Humans are a social species, and our energy system grew inside social life. The body's ability to spend and recover was shaped not only by food and sleep, but by whether other people were nearby, whether trust was possible, whether care was shared, and whether the individual had to remain constantly self-protective. This matters for the feeling of energy today. Modern life often turns exhaustion into a personal problem, but the older human body may experience isolation as a real cost. When every task belongs to one person, when every decision is private, when worry has no witness, when care must be given without being returned, the body may spend energy in hidden ways. It must remember more, plan more, monitor more, and hold itself together without the old relief of shared attention. A person may not be carrying wood or walking over rough land, yet they may be carrying an entire invisible structure of responsibility. The nervous system may stay active not because danger is present, but because support feels uncertain. The body may conserve energy because it cannot trust that rest will be protected by others. In earlier human settings, rest was rarely just a mattress or a quiet place. Rest also meant that someone else might be awake, that the group might provide warmth, that knowledge and labor were distributed, that children were watched by more than one pair of eyes, and that no single person had to hold the whole map of existence alone. Again, the details varied widely across time, place, and culture. No single model can honestly represent all human communities. Yet the deep social nature of our species is not a small detail. It is part of how energy became human. The body learned to live through exchange, giving effort, receiving effort, watching others, being watched, learning, imitating, teaching, sharing danger, and sharing recovery. When modern life reduces this exchange, fatigue can grow even in comfortable surroundings. The person may have food, shelter, and technology, but still lack the ancient energy support that comes from dependable human closeness. Loneliness, social pressure, or the feeling of carrying too much alone can make the body feel older than the day itself. Something feels wrong with your energy because the modern world often asks one nervous system to do what human life once spread across many nervous systems. It asks one person to be worker, planner, caretaker, performer, problem solver, emotional manager, and private witness to their own tiredness. The old body may not recognize this as freedom. It may recognize it as exposure. A human being was never only an individual engine. Human energy began as a shared field, moving between bodies, voices, gestures, attention, food, warmth, and trust. When that field becomes thin, the individual may feel drained without understanding why. The loss is quiet, but it reaches far back. The body still remembers that energy was never meant to be carried completely alone. In a deeply social species, energy is not only spent by muscles and organs, it is also spent by roles. A person who must watch, remember, care, decide, comfort, provide, protect, and remain emotionally steady is spending something, even when the body is almost still. This becomes easier to understand when we look back toward the long human beginning. Human beings survived not by turning every person into a complete self-sufficient unit, but by living through interdependence. One person could not be everything at once. A child could not raise itself. An injured person could not always gather, move, or defend. An elder might lose strength but hold memory, skill, or social knowledge. A younger adult might carry weight but need guidance. Someone might be skilled with tools, someone with food, someone with care, someone with observation, someone with stories that preserved what a group had learned. These patterns surely varied across time and place, and no simple picture can cover all human societies, but the basic truth remains careful and strong. Human life became possible because effort could be distributed. This distribution mattered for energy. If one person rested, another might remain attentive. If one person carried a child, another might carry food. If one person knew a route, others could benefit from that knowledge without each body paying the full cost of learning alone. If danger or uncertainty appeared, the burden of awareness could be shared. Energy, then, was not only the strength inside one body, it was the way a group reduced the impossible cost of each person doing everything. Modern life often weakens that ancient distribution while pretending that independence is always the highest form of strength. A person may now carry private schedules, private worries, private meals, private screens, private debts, private grief, private plans, and private exhaustion. Even when surrounded by people, they may feel that the final responsibility belongs to them alone. The body can read this as a form of load. Not a load on the back, but a load on the nervous system. It must keep track. It must anticipate. It must remember what no one else is remembering. It must stay ready, because no one else may step in. This can drain energy in a way that feels difficult to justify. From the outside, nothing dramatic may be happening, but inside, the person is holding too many threads. The older human body was not built around perfect community, and it would be dishonest to imagine ancient groups as gentle or free from conflict. Dependence can also create pressure, obligation, exclusion, and fear. Still, dependence meant that life was not organized around one isolated nervous system. A group could create a wider container for effort. Food sharing, cooperative care, teaching, watching, and remembering all allowed the individual body to spend less in some places and receive support in others. Even the simple presence of trusted people can change how the body uses energy, because safety is partly social. When the body feels accompanied, it may not have to monitor as fiercely. When it feels unseen or unsupported, it may keep more systems alert. This is one reason modern tiredness can grow inside lives that look materially easier than older lives. The individual may have a room, a device, and access to services, but still lack the shared human structure that helps energy settle. The day may require many roles without enough real exchange. Work asks for focus. Family asks for care. Society asks for performance. Technology asks for response. The inner self asks for control. Each role uses energy. If there is no place where these roles are softened by trustworthy connection, the body may become guarded. It may not give energy freely because it senses that too much depends on one person staying functional. Something feels wrong with your energy because modern life often asks the individual to become a whole group. It asks one mind to remember, one body to endure, one nervous system to regulate, one person to plan the future, manage the present, repair the past, and still appear steady. But human energy did not start there. It started in shared rhythms, shared attention, shared vulnerability, and shared recovery. To be human was never to be an isolated container of power. It was to be part of a living arrangement where no one body could safely hold everything for long. When that arrangement becomes thin, tiredness may not only be physical, it may be the body's quiet protest against carrying alone what was once carried together. When energy becomes a private responsibility, tiredness becomes heavier. A person may still live among others, speak to others, work with others, and be seen by others, yet feel that the final burden of staying functional belongs to one body alone. This is a very modern kind of loneliness. It is not only the loneliness of having no one nearby, it is the loneliness of being responsible for too many parts of life without enough shared holding. The body may wake and immediately begin to carry work, money, family, health, reputation, memory, planning, worry, and self-control. None of these burdens may look dramatic from the outside. They may appear ordinary, but the nervous system does not measure only drama. It measures duration, uncertainty, and whether support feels real. A human body shaped through long social life may find this kind of private burden deeply expensive. It must stay organized. It must stay acceptable. It must keep going even when no other person truly knows how much energy is being spent. In the older human story, the self was never separate from the group in the way modern life often imagines. This does not mean early human communities were peaceful or easy. It does not mean people were free from fear, conflict, exclusion, or hardship. But the conditions that shaped our bodies were social conditions. Human infants depended on long care. Knowledge moved through teaching and imitation. Food, safety, movement, warmth, memory, and recovery were often supported by more than one person. The individual body was real, but it lived inside a network of other bodies. That network changed how energy was used. A task shared could become lighter. A danger noticed by many eyes could reduce the burden on one pair of eyes. A child watched by several people could allow one exhausted adult to breathe. A skill held by one person could save others from paying the full cost of discovery. Even emotional steadiness could be shared through presence, voice, touch, ritual, and belonging. These are not sentimental details. They are part of how a social species regulates energy. Modern life often keeps the social species but removes the shared container. It may praise independence while quietly increasing private load. It may give a person tools, but not relief. It may give communication, but not true presence. It may give choice, but also responsibility for every choice. It may give privacy, but also isolation. So, the body may be materially safer and still socially strained. It may no longer need others to keep a fire alive, but it may need others to help the nervous system feel that the whole world is not resting on one mind. When that feeling is missing, energy can become guarded. The body may not fully rest because no one else is protecting the rest. It may not fully release because the next demand still belongs to the same person. It may not fully recover because responsibility has no clear edge. This is one reason the modern idea of personal energy can become cruel. It asks the individual to explain tiredness as a flaw inside the individual, while ignoring the older truth that human energy was always partly relational. A person does not simply have energy. A person receives conditions that allow energy to rise. Food is one condition. Sleep is one condition. Movement is one condition. Safety is one condition. So is belonging. So is trust. So is the quiet knowledge that another person can carry part of the day. Without those conditions, the body may feel as if it is trying to keep itself alive in a crowd without a tribe. That feeling does not need to be loud to be costly. It can show up as fog, heaviness, irritability, reluctance, or the sense of being tired before the visible work begins. Something feels wrong with your energy because modern life has made energy feel like a personal performance, while the body still carries the older expectation that life is shared. This does not answer every kind of fatigue, and it does not turn community into a simple cure. Human relationships can drain energy too, especially when they are unsafe or demanding. But the deeper pattern remains. The human organism was not built to carry every role alone without consequence. Energy began in a field of mutual dependence. When that field becomes thin, the individual body may continue moving, speaking, working, and smiling, while quietly paying the cost of being too alone with too much. Agriculture changed human energy in a way that cannot be reduced to the simple idea that life became easier. It did make certain things more reliable in some places. It allowed food to be cultivated, stored, counted, defended, inherited, and organized across seasons. It supported larger settlements and more complex societies. It gave human beings new ways to remain in one place and build long relationships with land. But it also changed the rhythm of effort. Before farming became central in many regions, human groups often lived with movement, varied food sources, seasonal change, and a close dependence on what the surrounding environment could provide. After agriculture spread, many people became tied more tightly to fields, harvests, storage, animals, property, weather, labor cycles, and social obligations. This was not a small adjustment. It changed how the body spent energy across the day and across the year. The older body, shaped through movement, uncertainty, and flexible response, entered a world where work could become more repetitive, more scheduled by season, and more bound to a fixed place. This did not happen everywhere at once, and it did not happen in the same way for all people. Human history is too wide for one single agricultural story. Some communities adopted farming slowly. Some mixed farming with foraging, fishing, herding, or trade. Some lived with abundance in certain seasons and hardship in others. But the broad transition mattered because it connected energy to systems larger than the individual body. A person did not simply eat what could be found in a day. They might work for a harvest months away. They might depend on stored grain, shared labor, land rights, social rank, or the success of a crop. Energy became organized around delayed reward. The body worked now so that food might exist later. This is a powerful human achievement, but it also means that effort became less tied to immediate bodily signals. The body could be tired, yet the field still required attention. The season could demand labor whether the individual felt ready or not. The group could need planting, weeding, harvesting, grinding, carrying, building, storing, or guarding, at times set by weather and crops rather than by personal energy. In this way, agriculture began to pull human energy into history's larger clock. The body was still ancient, but the schedule became social, seasonal, and economic. This is one of the early roots of the modern feeling that energy must obey demands outside the body. Farming did not create that feeling alone, but it deepened it. It made survival depend on repeated tasks and future planning in a new way. A person's energy was no longer only responding to the visible landscape of today. It was tied to tomorrow's food, next season's harvest, the needs of animals, the storage of grain, the expectations of family, and the structure of a growing community. This could support life, but it could also make effort harder to escape. The body might no longer be moving across wide terrain in the same pattern as before, but it could be bent over repetitive work, carrying loads, processing food, or living closer to other people and animals, with new pressures on health and recovery. Archaeology and history suggest that early farming communities often faced complex trade-offs. More dependable food, in one sense, could come with narrower diets, harder labor in some contexts, denser living, and greater exposure to certain diseases. These details varied, and they should not be exaggerated into a single dark story. But they show that the shift to agriculture was not simply a rise from hardship into comfort. It was a transformation of the energy bargain. Human beings gained new stability, but also new demands. They learned to store food, but also to protect stores. They learned to settle, but also to work within the limits of land and season. They learned to plan, but also to worry farther into the future. Something feels wrong with your energy today, partly because this long transformation did not stop. The modern world continues the agricultural pattern in a new form. Work now, reward later. Follow the schedule, not the body. Manage time, not only hunger. Keep producing, because the system depends on continuity. The roots of that pattern reach far back to the moment human energy began to be organized not only by the body's immediate needs, but by fields, seasons, settlements, storage, and the future. Farming changed effort by giving it a calendar. A body could no longer answer only to hunger, weather, distance, and the changing needs of the day. It also had to answer to planting, tending, harvesting, storing, grinding, repairing, feeding animals, protecting fields, and waiting for results that might not come for months. This was a new kind of rhythm in the human story. It did not remove uncertainty. In some ways, it stretched uncertainty across longer time. A hunter, gatherer, fisher, or mobile group might face the uncertainty of what could be found in the near future, depending on place and season. A farming community faced the uncertainty of whether labor invested now would become food later. Rain, drought, pests, soil, disease, conflict, and social organization could all change the outcome. The body still lived one day at a time, but the work of the body was tied to a future that had to be imagined, planned, and protected. Energy became more deeply connected to waiting. It became connected to repetition. It became connected to doing the same task again because the season required it, not because the body felt ready. This was a major shift from an older pattern of more varied movement. Farming could involve bending, lifting, digging, carrying, cutting, walking, grinding, hauling water, tending fires, building storage, and caring for animals. These tasks were not simply exercise. They were survival inside a settled system. They often had to be repeated with patience, sometimes under heat, cold, hunger, fatigue, or social pressure. The body was still the same ancient organism, but it was increasingly placed inside human-made cycles. The field did not care whether a person woke with clean energy. Grain did not grind itself because the shoulders were tired. Animals did not wait because the nervous system needed quiet. A community that depended on stored food had to keep working even when individual bodies wanted pause. This is where the long story of energy begins to resemble modern life more closely. The demand becomes external. The clock may not yet be mechanical, but the season becomes a clock. The harvest becomes a clock. The needs of a settlement become a clock. Human energy is asked to fit a system larger than hunger, sleep, and muscle readiness. This did not happen in a single moment, and it did not erase older ways of living. Many people continued mixed patterns of farming, gathering, herding, hunting, fishing, and trade. But wherever agriculture became central, the body entered a deeper relationship with schedule, storage, and obligation. Food could be saved, but effort also had to be saved and repeated. A poor season could make past labor feel wasted. A good season could create more work in storage, protection, and distribution. Population could grow, and with more people came more hands, but also more mouths, more waste, more disease risk, and more social complexity. Energy was no longer only a biological matter. It became part of a social structure. Who worked? Who rested? Who ate first? Who owned land? Who carried water? Who cared for children? Who processed grain? And who made decisions all shaped how energy was spent across generations. This matters for the feeling of energy now because modern tiredness did not appear from nowhere. Long before offices and screens, human beings were already learning to live under systems that asked the body to work beyond its immediate signals. The body might say, slow down, but the crop might say continue. The mind might want rest, but winter stores might say prepare. The individual might be exhausted, but the group's survival might require one more day of repeated labor. That ancient compromise did not make humans broken. It made societies possible, but every compromise leaves a trace. The body learned to endure schedules, yet it remained a body with limits. It learned to plan for future food, yet it still needed present recovery. It learned to live in dense communities, yet it still carried older needs for movement, sleep, safety, and shared care. Something feels wrong with energy today because this old tension has grown larger. The modern person may not be planting grain by hand, but the pattern remains familiar. Spend energy now for a future reward. Repeat tasks because the system requires them. Ignore the body's softer signals until the work is done, and hope recovery can be found later. Agriculture did not simply feed civilization, it taught human energy to live under time. Agriculture was one of the moments when human energy began to belong not only to the body, but to history. Before large settled systems, effort was still shaped by social life, seasons, landscape, and uncertainty, but it was often closer to immediate conditions. Hunger, weather, distance, shelter, food sources, and group movement could change what the body needed to do. With farming and settlement, more of human effort became attached to structures that lasted beyond the day. Fields remained, stores remained, houses remained, boundaries remained. Animals, tools, seeds, paths, debts, duties, and expectations remained. The body woke into a world where yesterday's work was waiting to be continued, and tomorrow's survival depended on what was repeated today. This changed the feeling of energy in a deep way. Energy was no longer only a response to the living world around the body. It became an investment in a future system. A person could be tired now, but the field still needed tending. A person could want rest now, but stored food still needed protection. A person could feel the limits of one body, but the larger arrangement of settlement, season, and community could keep asking for more. This is not a simple story of decline. Agriculture allowed many human communities to grow, organize, build, remember, specialize, and remain connected to place across generations. It supported cities, crafts, writing, trade, law, and many forms of culture. But every new stability also carried new demands. When people settled more densely, energy became tied to social order. Labor could be divided, but it could also be uneven. Food could be stored, but it could also be controlled. Time could be planned, but planning could become pressure. The body, shaped through older patterns of movement, hunger, rest, and shared attention, became increasingly drawn into systems that were larger than any individual's natural rhythm. This is where the modern problem begins to become recognizable. A person's energy could be required not when the body felt ready, but when the system required continuity. The season, the harvest, the storehouse, the household, the village, the ruler, the market, or the debt could all become reasons to spend energy. Over many generations, human life became more organized around delayed outcomes. Work now so food exists later. Work now so the family survives winter. Work now so taxes, obligations, or exchanges can be met. Work now because others depend on the same chain. The body did not stop being biological, but life became more historical. Energy was pulled forward into imagined futures, inherited responsibilities, and social structures that could outlive the individual. In this sense, modern fatigue has old roots. Today, many people spend energy for distant goals: a paycheck, a deadline, a future safety, a reputation, a retirement, a family need, a plan that may not show results for years. The setting has changed, but the deeper pattern resembles the agricultural turn. The body lives in the present, but the system asks it to serve the future. The nervous system feels today's specificist. To the mind says there is still more to do because tomorrow depends on it. This creates a quiet split between biological time and social time. Biological time asks for sleep, movement, food, warmth, calm, and recovery. Social time asks for repetition, production, planning, and endurance. Neither side is imaginary. Both are real. But when social time becomes too strong, the body may begin to feel as if something is wrong with its energy, when it may be struggling to live under a schedule that grew slowly through human history. The long beginning of this problem is not one invention, one crop, one village, or one mistake. It is the gradual binding of bodies to systems. Human beings gained the power to shape land, store food, and build futures, but they also entered a world where effort could be demanded by things the body could not feel directly. A field, a calendar, a storehouse, a village, a tradition, a debt, a job, an institution, a screen, all can ask the body to spend itself beyond the moment. Something feels wrong with your energy because your body is ancient, but your obligations are historical. They come from layers of human organization that began long ago, when energy first became tied not just to survival today, but to the long machinery of tomorrow. Modern life removed many hardships, but it did not remove demand. This is one of the central reasons human energy can feel so confused today. A person may live in a world with walls, medicine, transport, warm clothing, stored food, clean water, and machines that replace many kinds of physical labor. These are real achievements, and it would be dishonest to pretend they do not matter. They have reduced suffering in ways earlier generations could not always imagine. Fewer people must face raw cold without shelter. Fewer people must carry water over long distances. Many tasks that once required the whole body can now be done by pressing a button, sitting in a vehicle, or looking at a screen. On the surface, this should mean that the body has more energy left over, yet many people feel the opposite. They feel tired inside lives that appear easier from the outside. The paradox is not that comfort failed. The paradox is that comfort removed some old forms of effort, while leaving the body inside a new field of pressure. The human organism was shaped to handle physical challenge, but also to recover after challenge. Modern life can reduce the challenge while weakening the recovery. A person may no longer spend the day walking across uneven ground, but they may spend the day under artificial light, surrounded by information, held in one posture, answering expectations, managing emotion, and staying available to work or family even after the visible day has ended. The muscles may be protected from hardship, while the brain and nervous system are kept open for too long. This creates an energy problem that is not obvious. The body is spared from certain burdens, but it is not released into deep rest. It is held in a state of mild, continuous demand. In the older human story, effort often came with physical limits. A distance ended, a load was set down, darkness changed the day, hunger was felt in the body. Weather placed clear boundaries around action. A group stopped, gathered, slept, moved, or waited according to conditions that could be sensed. Modern demand often has no such natural boundary. Work can continue through messages. Noise can follow a person indoors. Light can extend the day. Social comparison can arrive in private. Worry can grow without anyone else seeing it. The body may be safe from the old danger, but still unable to feel finished. This is where technology changes energy in a subtle way. It saves effort in the muscles, but it can increase demands on attention. It shortens distance, but increases speed. It brings food closer, but separates food from movement. It creates warmth, but blurs the signals of season and night. It connects people, but can also expose the mind to more social information than one nervous system can peacefully hold. None of this means technology is bad. It means the body is old. It was not shaped in a world where demand could enter through light, sound, text, alerts, images, schedules, and invisible obligations at nearly any hour. The body may not know how to treat these signals as harmless, because its older systems were built to take repeated signals seriously. Attention is costly. Readiness is costly. Choice is costly. Emotional restraint is costly. Even comfort can become costly if it keeps the body still while the mind remains active. Something feels wrong with your energy because modern life has changed the shape of effort. The old body expected hardship to be felt in the legs, skin, stomach, breath, and hands. The modern world often moves hardship into attention, timing, responsibility, and mental availability. A person can now be physically protected but neurologically tired. They can avoid cold, hunger, and distance, yet still feel drained by a day that never gave the body a full beginning, full movement, full ending, or full release. This does not make modern exhaustion imaginary. It makes it historically strange. The body is living after many old hardships have been softened, but before its deepest rhythms have learned how to live calmly inside constant artificial demand. The world became easier in certain physical ways, but it also became louder, faster, brighter, and more continuous. Human energy did not begin in such a world. It began in a body that needed effort, pause, darkness, movement, social steadiness, and recovery. When hardship disappears but demand remains, tiredness can become quiet, persistent, and difficult to name. The modern body is often spared from cold, hunger, distance, and rough labor, yet it is surrounded by signals that ask the nervous system to keep responding. This is a new kind of pressure in the long story of human energy. A person may not have to search for food across a landscape, but they may have to choose between endless kinds of food, information, work, messages, images, and expectations. The body may not have to walk for hours to reach another place, but the mind may travel through hundreds of concerns before noon. The skin may be protected from weather, but the eyes may be exposed to bright light long after sunset. The hands may not carry heavy tools, but attention may carry tasks that never feel fully complete. This is why the absence of old hardship does not automatically create calm energy. The body is not only tired by what it lifts, it is also tired by what it must sort, filter, ignore, remember, and anticipate. In the older human world, many demands came through direct contact. Cold was felt on the skin, hunger was felt in the stomach, distance was felt in the legs. Danger, when visible, had shape, sound, direction, and nearness. Social life happened through bodies in space, through voices, faces, gestures, and shared surroundings. These signals could be difficult, but they were grounded. Modern signals can be more abstract and more continuous. A notification can interrupt rest. A message can create social pressure without a face. A piece of news can bring distant danger into the body without giving the body anything useful to do. A calendar can place future demands into the present. A screen can hold the eyes closed while the larger body remains still. The nervous system receives these things as information. And information is not weightless. It must be processed. It must be judged. It must be placed somewhere. Over time, this constant processing can become a quiet drain on energy. The body may be comfortable, but comfort is not the same as recovery. A chair can remove the need to stand, yet the back and hips may remain fixed for too long. Heating and cooling can protect the body from harsh temperatures, yet the body may lose some natural cues that once helped mark the difference between day and night, work and rest, season and season. Fast transport can save hours of walking, yet it can also compress the day, allowing more obligations to fit into the same human nervous system. Digital connection can reduce isolation in some ways, yet it can also make a person feel reachable at every hour. These are not simple losses, and they are not reasons to reject modern life. They are trade-offs. Human beings gain protection, speed, and choice, but the body still has older limits. It still needs rhythms that are slower than information. It still needs movement that is wider than hand and eye. It still needs darkness that is deeper than simply turning away from a screen. It still needs endings that the nervous system can believe. The strange feeling of modern tiredness often comes from this gap. The body may have avoided the old physical cost, but it has paid a new mental cost. It has answered light, sound, choice, urgency, comparison, and responsibility. It has stayed polite when it wanted release. It has stayed seated when it wanted movement. It has stayed awake when it wanted darkness. It has remained available when it wanted to disappear from demand for a while. Something feels wrong with your energy because the world has become easier for some muscles and harder for attention. The ancient body once spent energy moving through space, reading weather, finding food, staying warm, and belonging to a group. The modern body often spends energy remaining still while the mind moves everywhere at once. It lives with less raw exposure, but more continuous stimulation. It has fewer visible dangers, but more invisible openings for worry. It is safer in many ways, yet less often allowed to fully stand down. This is not weakness. It is a mismatch between a body built for physical rhythm and a world built for constant input. The great paradox of modern energy is that life can become lighter for the muscles while becoming heavier for attention. A person no longer has to spend the day gathering fuel, walking over difficult ground, enduring raw weather, or carrying every object by hand. Machines lift, transport, heat, cool, store, calculate, and remind. Many old forms of bodily strain have been reduced, and this has protected human life in real and important ways. Yet the nervous system may still feel as if the day is full of pressure. The body is not climbing a hill, but the mind is climbing through messages, deadlines, decisions, comparisons, noises, lights, and unfinished tasks. The legs may not be tired from distance, but the attention may be tired from never being allowed to settle. This is why modern exhaustion can feel so confusing. It does not always match the visible effort of the day. It may come from a world where the body has been made still while the mind has been made restless. In the older human story, effort usually had more texture. Hardship could be severe, and we should never pretend that older life was gentle. But the body often understood what was being asked of it. Cold required warmth, hunger required food or endurance, distance required walking, a load required carrying, a sound required listening, a social tension required attention to the people nearby. These demands could be difficult, but they passed through the senses and the muscles. They gave the body a clearer relation between effort and response. Modern demand often comes without that clear physical shape. It arrives as expectation. It arrives as timing. It arrives as information. It arrives as the feeling that one must be reachable, informed, productive, calm, and ready at the same time. The body may sit in a soft chair, while the nervous system behaves as if the day is still pressing from every direction. This is not the old fatigue of walking far and needing rest. It is the newer fatigue of being asked to remain available without a true ending. The deeper problem is that attention has become a place where modern life stores much of its weight. Every choice asks for evaluation. Every interruption asks for reorientation. Every screen asks the eyes and brain to narrow into a small field. Every unfinished obligation asks the memory to keep a door open. The old body was not shaped to ignore so many signals. In an earlier environment, repeated signals could matter. A sound, a face, a change in light, a smell of smoke, a shift in weather, or movement at the edge of vision might call for response. The nervous system learned to take the world seriously. Today, it may take too many artificial signals seriously because it cannot always know which ones are harmless. So energy leaks away through small acts of filtering, noticing and ignoring, reading and deciding, preparing and delaying, wanting rest and continuing anyway. These small acts do not look heroic, but together they can drain the body. This is why the modern day can end with a tiredness that feels unfinished. The muscles have not completed a story. The mind has not completed a story. The body has not received enough movement to say, "The effort passed through me." The nervous system has not received enough quiet to say, "The demand is over. The evening may arrive, but the light continues. The work may stop, but the thought remains. The room may be safe, but the body may still hold itself near readiness." Something feels wrong with your energy because modern life often removes hardship without restoring rhythm. It lowers certain physical costs, but raises the cost of attention, speed, choice, and constant self-control. Human energy did not begin in a world like this. It began in a body that expected effort to have a direction, rest to have a boundary, darkness to mean a change, and social life to help carry the day. When life becomes easier in one layer and heavier in another, the body may not know how to feel fully relieved. It may be protected from the old cold, the old hunger, the old distance, and the old danger, yet still feel tired under the new brightness, the new speed, the new noise, and the new demand to be endlessly present. There is a gentler way to understand tiredness than treating it as a personal failure. This does not mean ignoring the body, and it does not mean turning every low-energy day into a deep historical symbol. Fatigue can come from many ordinary and serious causes, and persistent exhaustion deserves real attention in real life. But when we look at the long story of human energy, tiredness begins to look less like an insult and more like a message from an older body. The body is saying that energy has never been unlimited. It is saying that effort, recovery, sleep, food, movement, safety, and human connection were always meant to belong together. It is saying that the modern world may have changed faster than the rhythms that still guide the organism beneath the skin. This message is not spoken in words. It appears as heaviness in the morning, fog after long attention, restlessness after too much sitting, or the strange feeling that the day has asked for more than the body can calmly give. In modern life, people often respond to tiredness with judgment. They ask why they are not stronger, why they cannot focus more cleanly, why comfort has not made them feel restored, why food, shelter, and technology have not created steady energy. But the older body does not measure life only by comfort. It measures whether the conditions for recovery are present. It measures whether night has truly become night. It measures whether stress has ended or only changed form. It measures whether the body has moved enough to feel awake, whether the mind has been allowed to settle, whether support is close enough to lower the need for self-protection. These measurements are not moral. They are biological. They come from a long history in which energy had to be protected, because every living body existed inside limits. To see tiredness this way is not to romanticize the past. Earlier human life was not a hidden paradise of perfect rhythms. It contained hunger, cold, injury, danger, disease, conflict, uncertainty, and loss. Many forms of modern life have reduced suffering that once shaped human existence. But the body did not come from comfort alone, and it cannot be understood through comfort alone. It came from a world where energy was always negotiated with the environment. Movement followed land. Rest depended on safety. Food depended on season and effort. Stress depended on real pressures, some brief and some long. Social life distributed burdens but also created obligations. Agriculture tied bodies to calendars and future harvests. Modern technology softened old hardship while adding new forms of mental demand. Each layer changed the human energy story, but none of them erased the older body underneath. So, when tiredness appears, it may be useful to ask what kind of signal it might be, without rushing to a simple answer. Is the body asking for sleep, or for a clearer boundary between day and night? Is it asking for movement, or for relief from constant attention? Is it asking for food in a steadier rhythm, or for less pressure around the act of eating? Is it asking for social support, or for less private responsibility? These questions are not medical advice, and they do not replace professional care. They are a way of restoring respect for the body's history. The point is not to force the body to become ancient again. That would be impossible and unwise. The point is to notice that modern energy problems may carry echoes of older needs. A body shaped by darkness may struggle under endless light. A body shaped by movement may grow dull in stillness. A body shaped by shared survival may become heavy under isolation. A body shaped by careful spending may resist constant demand. Something feels wrong with your energy then, because the body may be reporting a mismatch, not announcing a defect. It may be reminding you that vitality is not produced by willpower alone. It rises from conditions, rhythms, and relationships that began long before your life, and that still quietly ask to be honored. The modern body carries old patterns quietly. They do not appear as memories, and they do not announce themselves as history. They appear as needs. A need for darkness that feels deeper than simply closing the eyes. A need for movement that is not the same as performance. A need for pauses that are not filled with more signals. A need for food that belongs to rhythm rather than only convenience. A need for other people, not as noise, but as steadiness. These needs are not signs that the body is outdated or broken. They are signs that the body is layered. Beneath the modern schedule, beneath the screen, beneath the chair, beneath the language of productivity, there is still an organism shaped by a much older world. That organism learned to save energy when the future was uncertain. It learned to become alert when pressure appeared. It learned to sleep through changing darkness and sound. It learned to move through space, to use the large muscles and the senses together to feel effort in the whole body rather than only in the mind. It learned that one person could not safely carry every demand alone. Modern life often forgets these older layers because they are not visible. A person may look healthy, dressed, awake, and capable, while the body underneath is managing conflicts that began long before the modern day. It may be trying to stay alert under artificial light while wanting night. It may be trying to focus for hours while wanting movement. It may be digesting food in a hurried, tense state while wanting slower conditions. It may be carrying private worry while wanting shared protection. It may be asked to produce steady energy while following a biological design that works in waves. Effort, pause. Effort, pause. Alertness, release. Light, darkness. Hunger, eating. Movement, rest. Contact, solitude, contact again. These rhythms are not perfect rules, and they are not the same for every person, every age, or every culture, but they point toward a larger truth. Human energy was shaped by cycles, not by constant output. This makes modern tiredness more understandable. A person can feel drained not because one system has failed, but because too many old rhythms are being stretched at once. Sleep may be present, but the night may not feel like a true ending. Food may be present, but eating may be separated from movement and calm. Work may be less physical, but attention may be more continuous. Social contact may be frequent, but support may be thin. Comfort may be real, but recovery may be incomplete. The body then does what bodies have long done. It adjusts. It protects. It lowers the flame. It becomes careful with energy. From the inside, this can feel frustrating. The mind wants brightness, readiness, and steady force. The body answers with fog, heaviness, reluctance, or a need to withdraw. It is tempting to call that weakness, but the longer story suggests something more patient. The body is not only responding to today, it is responding through patterns shaped across countless generations of living within limits. In that longer history, energy was never meant to be permanently open. It was meant to rise when conditions supported it and quiet down when conditions were uncertain. To understand this is not to excuse every tired day or to ignore practical causes. It is to place the feeling inside a wider human frame. Your body still carries a preference for daylight that ends, movement that returns, food that settles, stress that resolves, and human closeness that makes rest feel possible. When these preferences are repeatedly denied, energy may become unstable. Something feels wrong with your energy because the old body is still asking for conditions that modern life often gives only in fragments. It receives light without sunset, rest without release, food without rhythm, contact without belonging, work without completion, and comfort without enough recovery. The message is not that the past should be recovered exactly. The past cannot be recovered, and much of it should not be. The message is quieter. The body is still ancient enough to need rhythm, and modern enough to suffer when rhythm is broken. The feeling that something is wrong with your energy may not come from one place. It may come from many small mismatches resting on top of one another. The body expects darkness, but the evening stays bright. It expects movement, but the day keeps it seated. It expects stress to lead toward action or release, but worry remains open. It expects food to belong to rhythm, but meals arrive through speed, habit, pressure, or convenience. It expects rest to be protected, but the mind keeps listening for the next demand. It expects human closeness to help carry life, but many responsibilities remain private. None of these mismatches has to be dramatic by itself. Each one may be quiet. Each one may look normal, but the body is a system of relationships. When many old relationships are weakened at once, energy can become uneven in ways that feel deeply personal, even though their roots are much older than one person's life. This is the larger meaning of the old body living in a new world. The body is not simply ancient, and the modern world is not simply wrong. Human beings have always changed their surroundings. Fire changed the night. Tools changed the hand. Cooking changed food. Clothing changed cold. Farming changed time. Cities changed social life. Machines changed labor. Screens changed attention. Each change brought protection, possibility, and cost. The body adapted in some ways, but not instantly and not completely. Beneath every new layer, older needs remained. The need to sleep in a rhythm, the need to move through space, the need to feel safe enough to release tension, the need to share burdens with others, the need to spend energy carefully rather than endlessly. When these needs are not met, the body may not collapse. It may simply lower its brightness. It may make the morning heavier. It may make focus thinner. It may make the limbs feel slow. It may make the mind want quiet without knowing why. This lowering can be misunderstood because modern culture often asks the individual to explain everything through willpower. If energy is low, the person is told to push, optimize, improve, perform, and stay positive. Sometimes practical changes help, and sometimes professional help is needed. But the deeper historical view offers something different before judgment. It asks us to notice that vitality is not only a personal achievement, it is a condition that grows from the relationship between the organism and its world. In the long human beginning, energy rose from that relationship every day. The body met light, weather, ground, hunger, effort, danger, rest, and other people. It did not always meet them gently, and it did not always recover well, but its systems were shaped by their presence. Modern life can remove many of those direct contacts while still demanding that the body produce steady energy as if nothing important has changed. That is where the sense of wrongness may begin, not in a broken person, but in a strained relationship between inherited biology and modern arrangement. A body shaped for waves is asked to become constant. A brain shaped for attention to real surroundings is asked to process endless signals. A social organism is asked to manage private overload. A sleep system shaped by darkness is asked to rest after artificial brightness. A movement-based body is asked to stay still while the mind carries motion. The result is not always illness, and it should not be treated as a single diagnosis. It is a quiet historical tension. The body is doing what living bodies do. It is adjusting, saving, guarding, and sometimes refusing to spend freely. Something feels wrong with your energy because your energy is not only yours, it belongs to a long human inheritance, shaped by landscapes, seasons, hunger, sleep, movement, tools, groups, farms, cities, machines, and lights that reached into the night. You feel it inside one body on one ordinary day, but the feeling comes from a much longer meeting between past and present. And in that meeting, tiredness may be less like an enemy and more like a signal that the old rhythms have not disappeared. They are still asking to be heard. The question at the end of this long path is not how to have endless energy. Endless energy is not a human condition. It never was. A living body is not a machine that can be filled once and used without consequence. It is a changing organism, always dividing its resources between movement, thought, warmth, repair, digestion, attention, emotion, and sleep. The older human body knew this because it lived inside limits every day. Food could not always be assumed. Darkness could change the world. Cold could take energy away. A long walk could not be spent twice. Stress could prepare the body, but preparation had a cost. Other people could help carry life, but they could also bring pressure. Energy was never simply something to possess. It was something to manage, protect, share, and renew. Modern life often forgets this. It speaks as if the goal is to become endlessly ready, endlessly focused, endlessly productive, endlessly available. But the body beneath that language is much older. It does not understand endlessness. It understands cycles. It understands rising and lowering. It understands effort and pause. It understands day and night, hunger and fullness, movement and rest, danger and release, solitude and belonging. When modern life asks for steady output without honouring these cycles, the body may answer in the only way it can. It may slow down. It may become heavy. It may make attention cloudy. It may protect what remains. This does not mean the body is always right in a simple way, and it does not mean tiredness should be ignored. A persistent or severe loss of energy can have many causes and deserves careful attention. But the broader human lesson is still important. Low energy is not always a personal failure. Sometimes it is a reminder that the body has limits older than any schedule, and that those limits are part of being alive. In the deep beginning of our species, energy was not measured by how much one person could produce without stopping. It was measured by whether the organism could keep going through uncertainty without spending itself to nothing. Survival favored careful use, not constant display. It favored the ability to move when movement mattered, rest when rest was possible, save when saving was necessary, and depend on others when one body was not enough. These old lessons remain inside the modern day. They are present when a person grows tired after too much mental demand. They are present when the body feels dull after sitting too long. They are present when sleep does not restore because night was never allowed to become quiet. They are present when food is close but energy still feels uneven. They are present when responsibility becomes private and the nervous system has no place to set down its load. Something feels wrong with your energy because the world often treats energy as a personal possession, while the body still treats energy as a relationship. It is a relationship with light, food, movement, sleep, safety, stress, memory, and other people. If those relationships are strained, energy may not rise cleanly, even when comfort is present. The answer, then, is not to imagine a perfect ancient past or to blame the modern self. The past was difficult, and the present is not simply false. The more useful truth is quieter. Human energy was shaped for rhythm, not infinity. It was shaped for limits, not constant demand. It was shaped for recovery, not permanent readiness. To understand this gives the listener something more valuable than a quick solution. It gives a different way to see the body, not as a broken instrument that must be forced to play louder, but as an old living system asking for conditions in which strength can return naturally. Perhaps the first step is not to demand more energy from the body, but to recognize that the body has been negotiating with the world for far longer than the modern day can remember. Understanding the long history of human energy does not give a simple cure, and it should not be treated as medical advice. But it can give something quieter and more durable, a more honest way to see the body. Many people suffer twice from tiredness. First, they suffer from the tiredness itself. Then they suffer from the story they tell about it. They call it weakness, laziness, failure, lack of discipline, lack of ambition, or proof that something inside them is wrong. Modern culture often encourages this second suffering because it treats energy as a moral performance. If a person has enough energy, they are praised as strong. If they do not, they may be judged by others or by themselves. But the body is not a moral machine. It is a biological inheritance. It is the result of long adaptations, compromises, needs, and limits. It does not produce vitality only because the mind demands it. It produces vitality when many conditions quietly line up: sleep, movement, food, safety, light, temperature, emotional steadiness, social support, and recovery. These conditions began long before the modern person had a name, a job, a schedule, or a private sense of self. The value of this perspective is not that it removes responsibility, it is that it makes responsibility kinder and more realistic. A person can still care for daily life without believing that every low-energy day is a personal defect. They can notice fatigue without turning it into shame. They can understand that the body may be carrying old patterns of conservation, alertness, and recovery that were shaped in worlds where spending too much could be costly. This does not mean the body is always sending a clear message. The body can be confusing. Fatigue can have many causes. Some are ordinary, some are serious, and some require professional care. But the larger story helps protect against a harmful mistake, the mistake of treating the human organism as if it should perform endlessly under conditions it was never shaped to handle. The modern day may ask for constant focus, fast decisions, emotional control, long sitting, late light, private responsibility, and continuous availability. The older body may answer with limits. Those limits can be frustrating, but they are not meaningless. They remind us that human energy grew from relationship, not command. It grew from the relationship between the body and the world around it. In deep history, vitality depended on whether the body could move through terrain, find food, sleep under protection, manage cold, recover after strain, and remain connected to others. Today, the terrain may be a workplace, a home, a city, a phone, a debt, a memory, or a future worry. The form has changed, but the body still pays. This is why the educational value of the story is not to tell people that they should live like the past. The past was not an answer waiting to be copied. It was harsh in many ways, and human progress has relieved many old forms of suffering. The lesson is more careful. When we understand the past, we stop expecting the body to be free from it. We can see tiredness not only as an obstacle, but as information about a mismatch between old rhythms and new demands. A body shaped by darkness may need a real ending to the day. A body shaped by movement may not feel alive when movement is removed. A body shaped by shared life may struggle when every burden becomes private. A body shaped by scarcity may not spend energy freely just because abundance is nearby. Seeing this can create patience. It can help a listener stop fighting the body as if it were an enemy. It can make room for respect, not perfection. The point is not to excuse, neglect, or ignore serious symptoms. The point is to remember that the body has a history. It is not failing because it refuses to become infinite. It is speaking from a long human past, where energy was always precious, always limited, and always tied to the conditions that made life possible. If human energy has a lesson, it may be that the body was never meant to be endless. It was meant to listen, adjust, spend, save, and return. Across the long human story, energy moved through a living relationship with the world. It rose with daylight, movement, purpose, food, warmth, safety, and other people. It lowered with darkness, hunger, cold, strain, uncertainty, sickness, and the need to recover. It was shaped by walking bodies, expensive brains, careful sleep, shared burdens, changing seasons, farming calendars, modern machines, artificial light, and the strange new pressure of constant attention. None of these layers erased the others. They gathered inside the human organism, one over another, until a person today could sit in a quiet room and still feel the weight of a history they cannot see. That is why the feeling of low energy can be so mysterious. It seems to belong only to this morning, this job, this age, this mood, this private body. But beneath it is a much older pattern. The body is still asking whether effort has a rhythm, whether stress has ended, whether night was truly dark, whether food arrived inside calm or pressure, whether movement has returned to the limbs, whether another human presence makes life feel less exposed, whether the day has a place where the organism can finally stop preparing. These are not dramatic questions, but they are deep ones. They reach back toward the conditions in which human energy first became human. They remind us that vitality is not a command. It is not something the mind can simply order into being. It is something that grows when the body's older needs are not ignored for too long. The modern world has given human beings many protections, and those protections matter. It has softened cold, distance, hunger, pain, isolation, and danger in ways that deserve gratitude. But it has also created new forms of demand that are harder to name. A body can be safe and still overstimulated, fed and still unrested, connected and still unsupported, comfortable and still unmoved, busy and still without meaningful completion. This is the quiet truth at the center of the question. Something may feel wrong with your energy not because you are broken, but because your body is trying to live between two worlds. One world is ancient, made of rhythm, darkness, movement, shared life, and careful spending. The other is modern, made of speed, light, information, individual responsibility, and demand without clear endings. You live at the meeting point. Your tiredness may sometimes be the sound of that meeting. It may be the body asking to be understood not as a machine, but as a living archive of human time. There is value in that understanding. It can make the listener more patient with the body, more honest about limits, and less willing to turn every tired day into shame. It can also make the modern world appear in a softer but clearer light. Progress did not remove the past from the body. Comfort did not erase biology. Safety did not cancel the need for rest. Food did not cancel the need for rhythm. Technology did not cancel the need for darkness, movement, silence, and human steadiness. The old needs remain, not as commands to return to the past, but as reminders that the body's wisdom is slow. It changes over generations, not over a single lifetime. So perhaps the final message is simple enough to carry into sleep. Your energy is not only a measure of what you did today, it is part of a long inheritance of limits, protections, and adaptations. It belongs to a species that survived not by burning forever, but by learning when to spend, when to save, when to move, when to rest, and when to lean on others. And if that is true, then the deepest question is not how to force the body into endless strength, but how to live gently with a body that still remembers a world before this one. What would human energy feel like if modern life finally learned to listen to the ancient body instead of asking it to become something it was never meant